and really being their own representatives, that content creation and storytelling has been a big also passion of mine. And as of recent, cosplaying as Wednesday and creating little clips of that is like one of my favorite pastimes. It's like, as an actor's dream of being able to be any character, right? So that's what I'm currently working on, as well as my YouTube show, The Drea Show. I'm in pre-production stages right now. And I also work in the gaming industry as well, the gaming sector in Web3. So that's kind of a little bit about me.
You probably missed, but we were doing the popcorning. So we have, I hope I pronounced it well, Tash Elting.
Yes, that's me. I am Tosh. I am I have many positions. I am communications director for Southwest and Pacifica Synod for the Lutheran Church. And I am also a program coordinator for Women in Games International, where I host their podcast called Cheat Codes. And through Cheat Codes, I get to talk to different people throughout the gaming industry, because it is my mission that we all have the fundamental right to play. And I love to see people who look like me thriving, because the more people we have out there who represent everyone, the better product we have. And I just love to see people shine. And I'm also a content creator and a troublemaker. Oh, we have someone. John, will you introduce yourself?
Well, hello. Thank you so much for your patience. Just had to quickly do a reboot here. Tosh, anything specific that I should cover down on? Or are we doing any fun questions that I should follow up with?
Just who we are, where you're from, and what you love.
Well, first of all, I'm going to join you in troublemaker status. If it's a level thing, like 1 to 5, probably 4. Looking forward to 5. I am a longtime talent person in the technology space, notably talent acquisition and HR leadership for Apple and Amazon and a startup called SoundHound AI. And now I am with Games for Love, which is a nonprofit that makes sure that children in hospitals have access to gaming. I don't know if any of you have ever been in a hospital or even just in a medical setting. I have been for months and months. And for me, it was Pokemon, got me through that time. And we strive to make sure that kids around the world have access to the same thing. And beyond that, I am a very excited member of the community that we have here on LinkedIn, that Justin Williams here has been so instrumental in putting together. To be here as part of CHOC. Fun fact, I was born at CHOC. So thanks, CHOC, for birth.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for your patience. And we had technical difficulty in the beginning. I didn't realize I also had to go live on YouTube as well as my streaming platform, which I'm using Riverside FM. And with technical difficulties, John, glad to see you come on board here. And we're just waiting on one more guest, which is Eli Harris. He's an award-winning voice actor. He is actually on a cruise right now. He texted me this morning saying there might be some delays, but he's going to do his best to pop on in when he can. But just to give you guys an agenda and theme in spirit, this is a typical bonfire chat. We are just here to raise awareness for the CHOC community, which is the Children's Hospital of Orange County. It's for the kids, right? And I'm sure Christine and I were talking about this morning, about different charity events and stuff like that. I'm sure everyone can resonate to. It is a tough, not only a tough job market in the LinkedIn world, but it is a tough economy out there in general. And anything that you can do to lead with kindness and to lead with your heart on your sleeve was an opportunity that I couldn't pass up. And with Mike, who reached out to me saying, hey, do you want to raise some awareness by doing like a CHOC drawing, which he does on a daily basis? I came up with this idea. I was like, hey, I haven't done a YouTube live event yet. I just started a podcast maybe about a month ago. Why don't we put 2 and 2 together? And so we came up with this great idea of having people that you see normally on LinkedIn who are helping each other in the community. We want to get back and also make it fun while we're at it too. And so that's what we're all about here. And so I appreciate everyone who's joining in here. And again, if you can take a look at, I'm going to put it in the screen now, and I'll be constantly put it in the chat as we go as we go on. Take a look at the CHOC community. They are doing a walk here tomorrow, which is their big event. Unfortunately, a lot of us couldn't make it, but we're able to here to support in this manner of faction. So, but the walk is going to be amazing tomorrow, and the money that they raised has been tremendous, and love seeing it here. So without further ado, I haven't done my introduction yet. My introduction is, my name is Justin Williams. I'm the senior technical recruiter for Blizzard Entertainment. I've been doing for recruiting for about 10 years now. Currently live in San Diego. And I'm just happy to be here with everyone. And actually, this is the first time to getting a chance to know people too as well. So I haven't met Tosh yet, and I haven't Ala kind of met. We talked before, and Christina. So I'm happy to be here, guys. So with that being said, welcome. How's everyone doing today on this lovely Saturday morning? We were just talking about the hurricane weather, by the way. And feel free to chime in. This is not your typical Zoom meeting where it's presentation mode. Just hop in as you like.
Well, I have
No
a
raise-
clear
raise
view
hand
of
feature.
oh, sorry, someone talking.
No. I said there's no raise hand feature here. So
No raise hand feature, right? This ain't work.
I was gonna say I have a clear view of the window right now, and I'm seeing the wind pick up, and there's palm trees like right on top of my head. So hopefully won't come crashing down this way.
Yeah,
Thankfully, palm trees are pretty durable, so they can lean a long way before they fall. You're safe.
Yeah, right.
they absolutely can.
Strong roots.
They can survive a lot. Yeah, so we will get to questions. I got some messages on LinkedIn, and that's fine. You can message me on LinkedIn. I'm checking that too as well, and I'm monitoring chat. And there are 3 platforms I have to monitor. I have to monitor the CHOC platform. They have it live stream on their platform. I have it on YouTube Live and LinkedIn. So feel free to message me anyway. But again, if you have a question, just leave it in chat or message me, and I'll be happy to get to it. But why don't we start off with a little fun question here, just to get to know each other. What is your favorite game and why? So we're doing popcorn method. I'll start off with John.
You know, man, super recency bias, but if I go like this and I look at the other monitor, it's Baldur's Gate that is sitting right there. So
Oh.
for anybody here who actually has played D&D in the past, any sort of tabletop, and you don't need to hear this from me, read the 5 trillion other reviews that are all over Steam. It is the most faithful reproduction, the most flawless execution. I gotta say, like, when it comes to playable art, not sure if it gets better than this right now. So there's so many other great games, especially this year in 2023 is insane, but right now it's Baldur's Gate 3, hands down.
Nice. I think my favorite game, I keep going back and forth, but I think it is Tiny Tina's Wonderland. I love D&D, and I think it's so fun, and I love things that comment on themselves. So the fact that it's fully aware that it's a game, it just really makes my heart happy.
Yeah, if you want to popcorn it, or if
Yeah.
anyone wants to chime in, that's fine.
These are hard-hitting journalistic questions.
They
I don't know if
are.
I can
They
answer
are.
this one. I feel like stressed. I feel like it's like choosing a child. Like, how am I supposed to pick one? Like, I don't want to. I think if I go by recent or what I play the most, though, I'll convert it, because I feel like I have so many favorite games because they're all at different stages of my life why they've been a favorite. But I think I will say I've been playing a lot of Genshin Impact. I am a Genshin Impact girly. I've been playing it since beta. I am like a diehard. I play Genshin way too much. Like, every day I am playing Genshin without a doubt. They just released their new region, Fontaine, which is based on France. It's very beautiful. If you like art, I suggest looking at the really beautiful artwork they've done for that region. But I've been playing a lot of Genshin, so I guess that's what I'm going to have to go with. I can't pick a Riot game, I think, because that's kind of obvious. But I do play a lot of League. I'm not good at it, but I do play a lot of League. I will not put my summoner name like Ala did, because I am actually bad, and people will find me and they will shame me for how bad I'm at League, and that's warranted. Like, probably not the best, but yeah.
I'm gonna jump into it. I think I'm an iron or bronze or something like that.
I'm
but
also
I'm still
iron, so we can play together. We can play some League together. We're both
exactly.
iron.
So I don't mind. I agree. So my level is also not very high, but I decided to put it in there so because people can find you and be friends and yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if people want to be friends with me after they see how I play. I don't know if we'll be friends. So I might be like
For one game, for one game,
one game. I've been playing a lot of Pike support. I don't know what you play, Ala, but I've been playing I play a lot of support in League, so it's really fun for me because I like being able to help with the vision control and the map, and it's really fun for me playing support. So I've been enjoying that. I don't know what role you've been playing lately in League.
I agree. I mean, I'm also playing support as my favorite, but I like to go on top because I like to sometimes stay alone on a line and just like, you
Yeah.
know,
It is an
just
island. Top lane is an island. That is very well known.
exactly. But yeah, support is the best. I'm very excited to see what other people are playing. If anyone wouldn't talk about League for sure, but I would like to bring up my favorite game of this year, and it's Diablo 4. So I think it was really best Diablo, and I'm standing by that. And if anyone wants to talk to me about that, but I think yeah, the lore, everything was beautiful. So that's my game of the year. So I'm gonna pass it to Marie.
Hello. Come into my cozy world because those games that y'all mentioned is not my jam. I mean, I love it, but it's not my jam because I'm not good at it. So I'm gonna pick a game that I'm playing right now that I'm absolutely obsessed with. Hello Kitty Island Adventure. So any of my Animal Crossing Sanrio lovers out there, that game, I am 92% complete right now. I am almost done. Like I have been okay, and also no one tell me that cozy games can't be a grind because this thing is a freaking grind. And
I
I'm
agree.
92% there. So yes, any
Oh my god. That's
adventure
facts,
cozy
Marie. People need to stop sleeping on the cozy games. You have to grind in them too.
It
I'm
is
telling
a
you, cozy games are
grind.
making a comeback. Cozy
Oh
games is
my
definitely making a
gosh.
comeback.
I am like up in the middle of the night after I put my daughter down, and I'm just like, sourcing for sticks and coconuts in this game just to make things happen. But it is so much fun, and it is so cute. And it's cool because like you can you can join with friends live so people can play with you. So I have no idea what it's like to play League together, but come play Hello Kitty Island Adventure with me and come source materials so I can grind on like making the things I need to make to move forward in this game.
I mean, that's the beautiful thing about games, right? There's not one game meant for everyone. And John and I talked about this before. It's about breaking those barriers and stereotypes. I love seeing even when somebody responds, I play Wordle. They're a gamer. When somebody responds, I'm a Candy Crush person. Working in my current company, people are shy and they're like, because everyone's saying, I love Overwatch, I love World of Warcraft. And then you have some people like, I play Candy Crush. Like, don't be shy. Like, you're a gamer. And that's where we all can come together. And unity is just like in music, is gaming is therapy for the soul. Gaming helps out with stress relief. I know I just had a work meeting. It's like, how do you handle stress relief? And I was just like, gaming. That was the very first thing that popped in my mind. I was like, gaming. That's how I unwind. That's how I kick back. That's how I, reclaim my thoughts process. So I think a lot of people out there who are shy, my advice is don't be shy. Raise that flag high. If you play a Farmville, I don't know if that game's still around. But if you still play that game, raise it high. I play Farmville. Who cares? That's the beautiful thing about it. We're all gamers.
Just kidding.
I feel seen.
You know what's? Oh, go ahead.
As someone, I am neurodivergent, and sometimes I stim, and I realized that I was using farmscapes or gardenscapes as a stimming tool, just to kind of like because especially as a writer, if I sat there and I think about writing, I can't write because I'm focusing on the act of writing. But if I kind of take that part of myself and just kind of, mindlessly swipe on my phone and doing this little game, then I can be more creative and I can write. And it's the little things that kind of get us through the day that sometimes we're embarrassed to say. Like, people are like, "That's such a mom thing to do. You're playing, what are you playing, Candy Crush?" Like, don't do that to me. Don't, like,
Yeah,
no,
no shaming here.
shaming of the
No
game.
No shaming here.
Everyone has their
Chris,
own way to cope and process, so I love that. I think that's awesome, Tash.
Chris Vago says Pala is a great cozy game. Absolutely, I've seen reviews on that game.
Oh yeah, Palea,
Yeah.
right?
Palea,
I just got
yes.
I just got accepted into like the beta or the I don't know if it's like out officially yet, but they have a whole beta sign up on their website that you can go check out. Which is
It looks great. The art style looks great.
Yeah, it looks super cozy. If you're into cozy games, I would recommend like checking that out and trying to sign up for it.
And it's a cozy
Stardew,
MMO,
yeah.
which I don't think, I think they're trying to see like how successful that's going to be. So
Cozy MMO, right? And that's going to be interesting to watch, right?
I was going to say was interesting too is like, I think throughout the years, and probably a lot of us have, but we've like been obsessed with one game at a time or a couple. And then we'll like, okay, I'm kind of tired of this. Oh, there's a new game. Oh my God, I have to try this out. Right. And like, I remember as a kid, the first game I ever had was my Game Boy, and it was Emperor's New Groove. And I was playing for like probably a couple years until it was like, oh, the next new toy. Oh my God, I have a GameCube. I'm gonna play SpongeBob, right? Underwater Adventures of SpongeBob, and then a Scooby-Doo like mystery kind of like game where you would have to find different objects and find the clues and then find the bad guy, right? And then as an adult, it changed to like, oh, I can play PC games. So, here comes Fortnite, here comes Valorant, here comes, just like the mix of different games from WoW to Fall Guys, right? Like, it's like depending on your mood and who you're with, and also by yourself, the different game will emerge, right? So like maybe I'll play, like you said, Justin said Candy Crush, I'll play a version of that of Panda Pop. Is it kind of looks a little bit similar where you're like popping the bubbles, right? And that's kind of like how I wind down before bed, but I wouldn't necessarily be playing that with other people, right? So there's different games for different kind of environments and who you're interacting with, I think.
I think that's so true. I mean, so as much as I am a cozy player, like I love Borderlands 2, and like that's the game.
Yes.
That
Oh
my
God,
husband,
yes.
like me and my husband will go on that, and that'll be like kind of our grind. But totally right, like that's just more of like Borderlands 2 is something that like me and my husband share, and like that's how we we wind down for the night and how we have fun, right? And so I totally get that. Yeah, there's.
Do you remember that opening theme song for Borderlands 2?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh my God, it's such a catchy theme song.
It's like iconic, I think.
What is the name of that song?
Oh God, I couldn't remember. While you're thinking about that, I'm gonna flash this because it's on my desk. But my Atomic Purple Game Boy. Yes.
Have you ever played a game just because
Jack
you
in the Box is the
win?
goat.
Like you need a win for the day. Sometimes I've done that where I've like, okay, I need a win for today. Let me do this game, or I'll do like Stardew Valley. I'm like, well, if I just build this thing, I'll have a better day. Let me just
you get a sense of accomplishment and achievement sometimes when you build the thing in the game. You're like, I may not be able to pay off a mortgage in real life, but I paid it off in Animal Crossing.
But
so
I got to
win. Something. I got to win.
But now I'm in a loveless marriage to Sebastian in Stardew Valley. True story.
This ain't no place for no hero.
Oh, I love the comments. They're talking about SpongeBob and Panda Pop and Diablo 4. 800 hours playing Diablo 4. Ooh. From Mali Flower, if I'm saying it right.
It has that old Western theme song. Oh, no, I'll cut it off right at the hook. I love you like the way I love you. I suffer, but I ain't gonna cut you 'cause
This ain't no place for no hero.
Oh god, such a
So good.
it's so good. It's so good. I love that song. I've seen TikToks about it too. It's an amazing song. Yeah, chat's going crazy over Stardew Valley. Jared says Panda Pop.
Oh, that call out for Jackbox though.
Jack in the Box.
Whiplash during COVID. Woo!
I think that was like the game that everyone could agree on. Like, I'm in Discord communities, and it's like, hey, let's have a Discord gaming night. And I think that's one of the games where you can actually like all agree to play as a. It was like the pioneer of multiplayer, where now we could just be like, hey, let's all play, Fallout guys, or we can play what was that imposter game?
Among Us, yeah.
Among
I feel
Us.
like Among Us is like, that's how friendships are destroyed, though, honestly. Some
Yeah.
people take it a little too far.
Oh yeah, when people lie too.
Some people are really, I can't really lie
Good
very
liars.
well. And people would always know when I was the imposter, but that also meant when people would accuse me of being the imposter and it wasn't me, like no one would believe me. They were like, but you sound the exact same as if you were the imposter. And I was like, no, like I'm genuinely not. And then I'd always get like kicked out of the airlock, and I'm like, you'll find out. And it's like, this person is not the imposter. I'm like, and everyone's like screaming in the voice call, and I'm like, I told you it wasn't me. So
I'm naturally suspicious.
yeah, I
No.
respect that.
Yeah.
I respect that. I think maybe I'm giving off the naturally suspicious like energy. Like this is why those games are really like, I think they're fun, but it's like very it can be exhausting after a while of playing like those espionage like spy stuff. I kind of am like, maybe
It can be, but you know, the funny thing about Among Us is that game been out for a while, and it was an indie game, which I love indie games. My support goes out for indie gamers and supporters and creators. But that game has been out for a while, and it didn't really reach popularity until Twitch streamers, Toast.
Yeah.
Then you had, why am I drawing a blank today? But you had other famous streamers like Pokemon, of course, who played together, and that just shot that game to number one. It's amazing how a game can be out for a while, especially indie games, and it doesn't get its recognition. Now that leads me to the other thing in chat. Chat just said Dave the Diver. Dave the Diver was an indie game, but day one they had like 3 million downloads and made like $10 million in their first week. And that's an indie game, you know? And so that's why I'm saying, like, don't give up on indie games. Indie games are amazing.
How about BattleBit right now? Right? Like, that's a 3-person studio. That's crazy. They're like running circles around some of the like crazy complex stuff, and you're basically playing Roblox with like Call of Duty and Roblox. It's incredible.
I haven't played that game, so I'm not able to chime in. But the other game is okay. Let's talk about that. Baldur's Gate 3. All right, that's the hot topic right now. So Baldur's Gate 3 is a privately owned company. They're not public, and so if you guys remember, like even my company, Blizzard was a private company as well, and that's where a lot of creativity came from. And I love what their CEO said. Their CEO said they're based out in Germany, and their CEO said, "I will never sell my company because I want to keep my integrity and creativity of this game true."
Mm-hmm.
And I thought about that. I was like, wow, this person is missing out millions, but possibly billions of dollars just to keep the integrity of Divinity, Baldur's Gate, of the D&D. You know, what do you guys think about having your character and your value in the gaming community?
I mean, I think at the end of the day, it's like your morals and your ethics are what most, or some people stand by, right? It's like sometimes money can. I think it was Lincoln. He said, unfortunately, for most, there's a certain amount of money that can buy anything. It can convince you to do almost anything, which is a scary thing. But if you have really like strong morals and ethics of what you believe in, what you stand for, and who you are, then I think that's more commendable of when people do that. So I support that person. And I don't know if you've seen Pied Piper at all. For any enthusiasts of kind of like the blockchain Web3 high-tech world, but basically Pied Piper, he didn't want to, the show Silicon Valley, he didn't want to sell out his company for probably millions of dollars to Gavin Belson, his competitor, because they basically wanted to attach ads to it. And he's like, no, we're decentralized. Like, it was kind of like Web3 before Web3 was a thing, which was really interesting to show. But he's like, no, like, we don't want to do that. That's not what I stand by. So he didn't do that. He completely, did it all with his couple of friends, like 4 or 5 friends. So yeah, I mean, I stood by that.
It's an amazing show. I love that show. If you guys haven't seen Silicon Valley,
really great.
It talks about startups. It talks about
pain.
the pain, software developers, my passion right there. But it's such an intro, and it has the all-star cast.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
They're hilarious.
Totally recommend seeing that show. So Chad saying, love Mario Party. Absolutely, Mario Party was one of those classic games. Harvest Moon is another one. Jared said BattleBit is so great too, is that it brings back gaming back to the teamwork to games that we've grown distant from. Battle Royale style type of games. And I think there is a lot of Battle Royale style just because they've seen the popularity of Fortnite. Mm-hmm. I remember I was a Fortnite alpha tester and I didn't even realize Fortnite was going to blow up. I just liked it because it looked cool. And it was like, and I played it for solo. I didn't even play it for the multiplayer, but I agree. Like, Battle Royale is taking over a lot right now.
Yeah. And you know what game I laughed the most at or with, you could say, is Fall Guys. I never leave a game without laughing my head off. Like, and it's like the whole part of it of competing with your friends, but also you're like, I don't even know which little dude I am. Like, you're like following a herd of them, right? And they're all like, boop, 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 like popping on each other. So I don't know. It's like,
it took that success of Mario Party, right?
Yeah,
it took the success of the multiplayer.
Totally. That one's a really fun one too. I love that one. And it was really interesting trying to like cook with the controllers and you're like flipping the food. It's like how they're interacting actual real experiences into the game, right? So it's really interesting because my friend who actually is a cook, she won. She's like, I know how to flip this. I do this all the time. Little piece of meat that you have to turn the cube on. So yeah, that was good times.
Yeah. If you like something like this, so you probably should try it in Frentis. I mentioned that in the chat. Frentis is really like a competitive game, so you can sit with the friends and just use the phones and iPads, etc. What was really crazy about this game, it has a very interesting sense of humor. So it's very makes other people jealous because the one who is winning by kicking the friends or doing sneaking. So it's like the sense of humor there is really like kind of nice, a little bit dark. So I really suggest to try.
Like they say, it's all fun and games.
Yeah.
All right, I got a message on LinkedIn. I don't know if you want me to say your name or not, but I'll leave it private for right now. So, Justin, you posted yesterday about safe space with the Twitter Elon Musk removing the block feature. How have you seen diversity and is it protection? Protection. How have you seen diversity and protection within the gaming world that you've seen yourself, and what can you think that can be improved? That's a great question. Oh, that's a hot question. So thank you. If you guys want to continue, I'm getting a lot of LinkedIn messages. Feel free to drop it in the chat because I know there's 3 platforms right now. There are some people watching from the charity event. They're watching on the charity page, and then they're watching on YouTube, and then there's some actually watching on LinkedIn. I don't know how that's happening. So I'm getting mixed signals. So I appreciate your patience. So team, the question is, what have you seen with diversity, safe space? How can we improve the community? What changes have you seen recently that has improved? And what would you like to see improve? That's a great question. Thank you.
You know, there was a an interesting post that Amir Satvat, who amazing follow for anybody who wants to get real current on everything happening in gaming. Amazing person to follow. Community hub, super amazing human. But he actually recently shared Xbox's entire sort of community protection model, like the actual framework and how it works as a mechanism. And it was pretty incredible. It was probably the most interesting thing I read that week, let alone in just gaming. But it was intriguing about how like the live capture now, if you're on Xbox and you say some of the things that maybe people have historically liked to say on Xbox Live, particularly in first-person shooters, now people can report you and they can hit a button and it does a live recording of the last 60 seconds of whatever you said. And I think that's an amazing accountability tool because, Justin, you were talking about character, right? Sometimes gaming lets us be our character that we truly are. And sometimes that's experimental and people can find their way into some dark corners, but largely it's a beautiful thing where we can be whatever we are inside, we can be represented as on screen in our avatar. This is a way, I think, to make sure that the best version of that shows up and that we, whether we have anybody here with kids, it's so important, right? That we know that they can play safely and then they're not going to get exposed to some of the stuff we might have seen. Anybody who was playing, online in the 80s, or not in the 80s, I guess, in the 90s, in the early 2000s, like it was kind of a Wild West environment. So yeah, that would be my thought. Follow Amir and then check out that post on Xbox's approach to community.
I love Amir's posts. He's so granted with the Top Voice gaming. He's been such a pillar in this community. I remember he asked me one time, it's like, do you want to be Top Voice? I'm like, no, dude, that's all you have the science and you have just the perfect persona for that. My posts are more like creativity posts and but his is more metrics, data, you know what I mean? Insight. And I love that about Amir. Let's go with Tosh. What are your thoughts, being a Women in Games ambassador here? And forgive, she does have her voice.
Yes.
If you want to pass it,
I'll pass for now. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
We'll come back. Okay.
Okay.
What about Christina?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Oh no, Andrea, go
No,
for
you
it.
go first.
I don't think I have it. I think I will also be passing on that question, but I would love to hear what your thoughts are.
Yeah, it's given me courage to work in a gaming community where it's mostly male dominated. And I will say, especially when you're working as associate producer, being a female, right? A lot of times your voice isn't heard, even though you have the best solution. You understand that being a producer, a lot of times you're the liaison of lots of different teams. So a lot of the time you're hearing a lot of the problems, right? And you're having to voice the animators' problems, the riggers' problems, the maybe you even have other OS like outsourcers, right? You are the liaison. So you are being the voice of all of these people, right? And it's very difficult when you're entry level and you're not heard because you're like, I care about these people and they're not getting the support that they need. So I would say Women in Games has given me courage to have a voice and to stand up for, hey, I'm standing up not for only myself, but for my team, because I'm their cheerleader, I'm their coach, I'm their friend. And that's probably the main purpose that I'm here, is the problem solver. Providing a solution, providing production management along with everything else, right? So I would say Women in Games has given me the courage to do that, where it definitely feels like imposter syndrome at the first, right? It's like, I like games, but, I haven't done this a lot before and I'm going to just wing it. And, I've produced a lot for film and commercials, so it's transferable skills, right? But it's very intimidating going into a world where, you've been working with people who've been working in the industry for 30 years, right? So it's all about fear. It's conquering the fear, which Marie and Justin and I were talking about. Fear a lot is one of the biggest obstacles you will ever encounter is yourself, your own fear, it's just mind-boggling how it's like you are your biggest critic and you're your biggest obstacle as well. But you could also be your biggest cheerleader and your support and your biggest rock it, right? Like you can rock it, you can propel yourself to anything if you believe you can.
Yeah, congrats, Marie, for taking that leap and rebranding and starting your own show. How's your show going, by the way, or your podcast?
Yeah, it's going well. Yeah, I am in the middle of trying to record my next episode. It's been fun. It's been hell to edit because I've never done it before. Talk about fear. I'm over here like I'm just gonna delete all this. I'm just gonna stop right now because it's so hard. But it's been really fun. Like honestly, just the experience of yeah, like just putting myself out there. It's weird to like record myself, you know, talking to like an empty room. But you know, I'm always thinking about y'all and my community, and that's always the motivation. And the editing part again is the hardest thing for me because I just, you know, I've never done it before. I'm just using tools that like, you know, I have at my disposal. But it's been a great experience either way, like just learning that. And yeah, it's a lot of weird like yeah, talking about like fear and imposter syndrome, like that is such a weight to carry when you like put yourself out there, you know. Like when I first put out my first episode, I actually kind of felt the same type of anxiety of like when the first time I ever posted on LinkedIn, like that first day that I hit post, and like how scary that was. Like that all came rushing back when I was about to hit post on my video. So yeah, it's always there. I mean, hopefully it'll get better. I mean, even now, like, you know, y'all know that I post and run my mouth on LinkedIn all the time now, but you know, it's still scary. Like it's still, I still take a pause because I'm like, who's gonna troll me today? Or like, you know, who's gonna say something today? Or am I gonna say something wrong finally? Because again, my intention is never to harm or be negative or hurt anyone's feelings, but you know, so that's the thing about putting yourself out there. Like people will tell you how they feel, and how you navigate that I think is so important.
Could I add that on Marie? Because she talked about this with me, and it's really interesting seeing her inside thoughts and what we all perceive of her because she's a superstar. And she's like, but I'm afraid to shine. And that's what we all fear, right? It's like, but you already had all the skills. I mean, I've seen her podcast and I'm like completely amazed that she said, Andrea, I'm so afraid to post. I don't even know where to start. And I said, well, you're already doing it. You're already posting on LinkedIn. Like that's your scripts. You already have your scripts. Like pull all of those posts, all of that time, and you probably have them saved somewhere. Just start putting on video, right? And she's like, wow, it's not as scary as I thought because I already did a big bulk of the first step, right? And she's super talented and she's editing. And I was like, wow, I was super impressed already. Like she already had the skills, but it was the fear, right? And that fear is like that wall until we can like finally peel the shell or break down the wall. Then it's like we're unstoppable. Like I've seen her amazing work.
Yeah, +1 to Marie being a superstar.
+1.
Because
+1.
she's definitely one of the coolest people that I know on LinkedIn. And I remember when I first reached out to Marie, I was like, I'm really interested in gaming. Like, can you help me? Like, I was very energy, like did not know what I wanted to do professionally. And Marie was very kind and gave me some awesome advice and has just been someone that I've found so much valuable insight from, not just like your posts, but just you as a person. Like you're such a great human being, and your content is something that I always share with people who are like interested in the gaming industry or just are in general or not sure how to approach their resume. And it's honestly a big part of what inspired me to be a mentor to other people and help other people getting into the gaming industry. Like a big part of why I started posting on LinkedIn was because of Marie. So like,
oh wow,
+1 to all of that because she's
that's
huge
such a
superstar.
compliment, Marie.
Oh my god, that is amazing.
Yeah.
No, thank you for sharing that. Thank
Wow.
you. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's funny when you just kind of like run in the same circles and stuff, but
Yeah, I was I was like a 2,000-mile circle away from you. Like I was like, I want to live in Cal. Like I'd be so cool to work at a gaming company.
Yeah.
Like, and it was funny because I remember when I first announced that I got my job at Riot, I remember you messaged me. You were like, "Oh my god, congratulations! That's so cool. You're at Riot." And I was like, "Oh my god, I know. This is so cool."
yeah.
One of
True,
us.
true
One
mentor.
of us.
You just inspired me to share my story as well about imposter syndrome. And in recruitment, I also work with tech people. There is a very big conference called We Are Developers in Europe. So like thousands thousands of developers are going to this event. And so I just for fun, really, I was not serious about it. I submitted my application as a speaker. So the only recruiter who decided to speak at the developers conference, and I was sure they're not going to accept me because I called it like exploding recruiters by developers. I wanted like to share some secrets, how to do a great job on the interview, how to get your CV screened, this kind of things. They accepted. So they accepted, they invited me to speak, and I was preparing and I was really freaking out because it's like so many thousand developers. And I actually was sure that no one is going to come because I'm the only non-tech person who is going to speak there. And I was not representing Riot or anything. I was representing myself as a freelance recruiter. People showed up. This was like a big crowds, and they were asking questions. They were staying, after all, making photos with me. So, and sharing their experience about some interviews. So what I realized at that evening that I was so afraid to make myself vulnerable, and I met so many people who made themselves vulnerable in front of me, sharing their stories, sharing their questions. So yeah, it was quite interesting experience.
Just wanted to do a quick shout out. Jared, thank you for the donation here. Yes, it looks like yes, there are people watching on other platforms, correct? Because the overall, it shows 100 viewers, but YouTube and CHOC is different and LinkedIn is different. So yes, as a reminder, you can send me messages on LinkedIn. That's fine. Someone just asked, is it okay if I send on LinkedIn? I don't want to put it in the chat. That's fine. You can send me, any one of these guests, a message here. That's fine. But yeah, these are all great stories. As far as, as far as imposter syndrome, I see people in chat talking about imposter syndrome, and people always ask, what is like a good advice when breaking into the game industry? And I've been told this when I got into Blizzard, is to be a sponge, because you're not going to know everything right away. Like SpongeBob, you're going to be like SpongeBob. You're not going to know everything in the game industry. You're not going to know every facet. You're not going to know all the top streamers. You're not going to know everything about gaming, and that's okay. And there are people who don't even game who are in the gaming industry. So don't be afraid to put your name in the hat. Like Christine and I were just talking about how we both got into the gaming industry, and it's about timing. It really is about timing. As you guys have seen, Sarah McMunn, one of our IT specialists on my podcast show, took 10 years, dedication of applying. And she had the right skills. She had the right experience, but she was also smart in doing that. Every time she got a no, she kept adding to her resume and kept adding to her experience. And sad as it may seem, 10 years, but she's still. And for the people that are like, I tried 2 times and I gave up, and how did these people get in? Well, people can get in 1 application, or people can get in by 100 applications. The choice is yours. So don't be afraid out there. I believe in everyone can be in the gaming industry, and I hope to see everyone in the gaming industry. I'm excited about this panel here. It's an amazing guest. Ala, you mentioned that you got the chance to speak. How did you overcome just being nervous, right? That was another question I get asked a lot is, how do I overcome of starting my own podcast show like Marie? How do I overcome, talking to a recruiter? What are some tips on overcoming your nervousness there? It feels uncomfortable and scary. Exactly. Knocking on someone's door. Chris just mentioned in chat. So
it is. I think you should start doing that and being scared, but doing. So just thinking of it makes you even more scared. But when you start, so when I speak in public, first of all, I remind myself what I feel after all. So it's going to be so rewarding because people will get something out of it. I also try to find the person in the audience that I can look at, someone who's nodding to me or smiling, at least someone who's friendly. So really dedicate my speech to this person. And keeping in mind probably why I'm doing that. So there is a good reason. I want to help. I want to bring something to the community. But even when I say that I'm nervous, it actually makes me feel less nervous, because people like, they're kind of smiling back to you. They want to be supportive when they know that it's something new for you. So a sense of humor helps. A joke at the beginning helps to like make everyone comfortable or uncomfortable. So that's where my tips. But I think we need to ask Andrea. So she's the actress. So I think you just like you know the secret sauce.
Also, I'm a stand-up comedian.
I
Which
love
is-
that.
which is not easy.
Definitely not.
But I was a stay-at-home mom for over 10 years, and I have three. I was gonna say little ones, but they're not so little. I have a 16-year-old, a 14-year-old, and a 9-year-old. And to come from being a stay-at-home mom, and I mean doing everything, people say it's nothing, but it's but doing everything to try to enter the working space again, and to know what I want to do but not know if I'm able to do it. When I started, first thing I started doing, I took a stand-up class because I knew that I was funny. I knew I had some skill at that. And I started performing at the Comedy Store regularly, at the Hollywood Improv, just performing more often, just to meet people. But I hated it. I hated being out there. I hated being around people. I would take my mom with me every time I would go out because she's so social, and she would force me to network and talk to people, because after my show I would just kind of go inside of myself. So it was just like so draining. And so then I started going out more, and I ended up meeting Joni when I was working with a nonprofit at schools and doing STEM and like emotional intelligence things for young ladies. And I started working with women in games. And for a long time, I keep saying, I'm not in the gaming industry. I'm not. That's not what I do. I'm not in the gaming industry. And Joni said, stop saying that. Because I've gone to different things. I've gone to PAX. I've gone to TwitchCon, and that did not empower me. I felt down and sad there, because looking around, I like, where are the moms that look like me? Where am I? And it took me coming back and someone saying, you were there. So you were what someone else was looking for when they were looking around. You're looking for yourself, but you're there. And just you being there is such a huge step in the right direction. And for you to say you're not in the gaming industry when you've had opportunities to sit down and interview many people and talk at many gaming events, and on behalf of Women in Games International, and also to just promote diversity and inclusion, just because that's what I want to see. I didn't realize that my passion and my vision was enough. And I'm so grateful for opportunities like this, especially where I see other people who are thriving in the gaming industry, and I see myself reflected in everyone's face, and that is the stuff that brings me joy and makes me feel more confident, because I feel like it's our job to make people not feel like they have to be brave to exist, because it's unfair. If I have to be brave to work at Netflix, why? If I have to be brave to work anywhere, why? So we need to change those conditions so that bravery is not a token of admission for these spaces.
I loved that, Tash. Like, thank you so much for sharing that. That's such a beautiful thing. And I know for myself, like, especially when I was interested and I realized, as an undergrad student, I was like, I really want to work in the gaming industry. But every time I would look up pictures, I'd look up like the types of jobs. Like, one, I didn't see what I wanted to do because I was horrible at art and design. So I was like, definitely can't be an artist. Definitely don't feel comfortable doing coding or engineering. And I didn't really like see a path for me. And then it didn't really help when I not only didn't see a path, but everyone that I saw in a lot of the spaces were like white cis men. And I was like, well, I'm a Black queer woman. Like, how do I fit in? Where do I how do I feel comfortable and how do I actually feel like I have a place and a purpose in these spaces if I'm the only one of something? That kind of seems scary. And it's hard being the first one of something in any space. And a lot of people will say, oh, it's so brave or it's so powerful. But I love what you said, because it shouldn't be brave and it shouldn't be noteworthy. It should be the status quo. Like it should not be that you're the first one of something. It should be like, I want that to be average. I want it to be very normal and mundane, that there are many, many other like people of color in the gaming industry. I want that to be the norm. I don't want that to be like something that we have to call out and highlight. And I will say too, like, cause I know we were talking about like just struggling with imposter syndrome or things like that. And while I was hearing what everyone said, I wanted to write down what I was thinking so I didn't lose my train of thought, because I'm also neurodivergent. And if I don't write it down, then I will lose my train of thought very quickly. And the three things specifically that I wrote down that helped me were, I had folks that I called like, they were kind of like, they light me up, like they bring me joy, they bring me positivity. Every time before I did an interview, especially in my interviews for my current role with Riot, I would call my dad or my best friend or my sister, and they would just hype me up for like 10 minutes before the interview. Like I would call them about 15 minutes before and they would just be like, you got this, you're going to crush this interview. Like you're awesome, you're competent, like just really hyping me up. And that made it a lot easier. And you can do it, like you can call a friend or a family member, or you can honestly make a brag file, which is what I have now, which is just like screenshots of like compliments or like hype that people give me like through work or just general life stuff. And that makes it easier when you're having those feelings of doubt and insecurity. You can kind of look back and be like, well, all these people can't possibly be lying and thinking that I'm this wonderful person if I'm not. And also like reframing your perspective on rejection. For me, that helped a lot. I got rejected from Riot many, many, many times. I applied for internship, contract, full-time, all of that. And I got rejected time and time and time again. And what really helped me a lot, kind of what Justin was touching on, like I reframed the rejections into like, okay, how can I improve myself? And what I learned, especially as a program manager, and a lot of my role at Riot is, organizing and optimizing big programs that are of different scales, like small programs internally and large things. How can I upscale and really level up myself as a program manager? And for me, that was working at a different company. Like I worked in fintech for 3 years. I had no gaming industry experience. I lived in Michigan my whole life. Like I had no context of the gaming industry. And so when people say things like, oh, you have to work in this industry, like you really don't. There's no linear path. And for me, that's at least what I did, was I just reframed those rejections into milestones of like, how can I level up myself and how can I feel more confident? And maybe like to Justin's point, maybe you had a great resume, maybe everything was perfect. It's just the timing didn't line up. And then my last point was like taking specific, like very achievable steps that can make it feel a bit more like make you feel a bit happier, frankly, instead of feeling like overwhelmed by a daunting task of like you have all these different things you're trying to achieve. If you're just like, I just want to try to get a program manager role, like that's a bit more easier to achieve than being like, I want to work at Blizzard or I want to work at Netflix. It's like a very big, nebulous, vague goal. But if you make something that's like a SMART goal, which is like specific, measurable, achievable, realistic / relevant, or time bound, those are like micro steps you can take that feel much more, you'll feel happier and you'll feel like you've achieved success because you have achieved success. It's just not, you can't go from point A to point B without some steps in between. So that's like what I wanted to share on that.
Christina, this it's impossible not to reflect on a call that Christina and I were on last night. Actually, we were talking about ERGs, which is employee resource groups, and when that plugs into motivation, it's interesting. If we sometimes can feel like our quest log is just one thing. It's just, I got a job at Blizzard. Like if that's your whole, that's the only quest log. There's like 1,000 mini quests and probably 500 side quests. Let's be honest, between where you are now and there, or maybe you're somewhere along that path. But if you only see that one thing, it can feel so daunting because there's no directional clarity there at all. And on that note, if anybody here is listening and saying like, I really want to be in gaming, or maybe you're feeling discouraged, you're thinking, oh, that's me. Like I'm somewhere in that quest. I have no idea where I am. One reason to really stay excited about gaming and to stay motivated is, I've worked in big companies like Apple and Amazon and seen ERGs that are massive, but I've never seen or heard about the kinds of belonging and the kinds of activity that happen within gaming ERGs. And so if you're coming from a community that is perhaps underrepresented or under-resourced, know that there's an incredible sense of belonging that I've seen. And within PFLAG, which is Parents and Family of Lesbian and Gay People, which is a nonprofit that I'm very active within, we talk a lot about self-advocacy. And if you're the first of anything, especially if you're the first trans person in a space, I wouldn't say especially on any level, in any case, in this specific place, it can be so challenging to be that person of self-advocacy where you feel like you're the only person to speak up for you. And that's not in gaming. Gaming is one of the most inclusive spaces, that, or at least getting there, I should say, at least that I've heard about. So stay motivated and come and make it even better.
Yeah, I love that. No, I feel like it's definitely there's space, I believe, for everyone in the gaming industry. I think it's just everyone has their unique path to getting there, and it's not linear. And I think it probably doesn't help, John, like on LinkedIn when you go on someone's page. Like even if I go on your LinkedIn, I'll see like Amazon and Apple, and I'm like, whoa, this is a super like high executive, like super amazing, efficient. Like I can't possibly talk to them. But it's like once you get to know the person behind the profile, and it's not just a linear like, oh, they worked at Apple and Amazon, therefore, like, how could I possibly talk to them? It makes it a little more accessible and understandable because there's all these steps in between. You just don't see it on LinkedIn. You go on my profile, you'll see I was at a fintech company and now I'm at Riot, and you're probably like, wait, what? Like, trust me, I was like record scratch freeze frame too. I was like, wait, what's happening? So it's definitely like, think about the context. Like what you don't see is all the rejections and the pivots that person made in that year between those roles or those opportunities as well.
I want to drop a quote for y'all. What is it? If the plan doesn't work, change the plan, not the goal. I also like what John said, almost like gamifying your steps to the games industry, right? Because yeah, it is like there's so many ways. Like there's really like 1,000,001 ways to get into the games industry. But I think what the beauty of it is too, like, thinking about all of us who are on LinkedIn, who are sharing our stories, like everyone who is trying to get in, like you literally have that now at your disposal, right? Like you're literally getting to see all of these stories and what worked for folks. And it's not to say that that would work for you too, but at least you have kind of like the biggest cheat sheet or cheat book in the world, right? To, get to that end goal. So again, don't change the plan, or don't change the goal, like just change your plan, like strategize and change things up, reach out to folks, follow everyone who's here, follow everyone who's in the games industry, because there is no one way to get in, but everyone can get in, right? But it is just kind of like your own story as well, if you are thinking about kind of like gamifying your own story to get in. So
Every
Yeah.
failure is
Thank
feedback.
you.
And
Cash,
there's no one linear path to it either. So
No,
But I'm
Cash
on all
has
the side quests. That's the problem. I'm doing every single side quest. I want to know. I want to get this person their pumpkin because I want to
you're
know.
getting all the cool achievements.
I-
Like you're getting all the cool like hidden achievements though. I love that. I'm also the person there's like, oh, a side quest with with a pumpkin. I was like, ooh,
Yeah,
like,
I'm in. What do I have
I'm like
to do?
all of a sudden
I'm-
ignoring the main quest for this like other thing.
Is
I'm
it
like, why not?
procrastination?
I have to sing a song. That's all. Okay, I'm in.
I see Eli. He's been texting me. He's been trying to get in. Again, he's on a cruise ship, so hopefully he'll connect here soon. But yeah, a question from chat. I was from Jared. I was curious about from the recruiting perspective. Should I not use the LinkedIn Easy Apply feature and apply directly from the career page, or is it case by case? What do you guys think? So I think we only have a few recruiters. Or anyone else want to chime in? No?
I'll chime in.
I would go. Oh, sorry.
Oh,
Yeah,
go ahead.
go,
Go ahead,
Maria.
Allah. You go first.
Okay. In short, I would say Easy Apply is not probably going to show everything that you want to present, you being you. So if you would like to really get attention, I would always encourage you to have the motivation letter. And I think with Easy Apply, it's just like you just apply with your profile, if I'm not mistaken. I would always suggest, hey, go to the websites, check the career page, and maybe apply through the platform, because then you can add some additional information and fill in the form or something like that. So try to check out other people who are working at this company and see how they did their profile, so that you can also see like the ways how people present themselves. I think easy apply is a bad thing. So I'm not against LinkedIn or anything, but I think it's not encouraging you in a way to do and show this extra step. And to overcome, sometimes what I suggested to some candidates is to get your like CV with like PDF file and some connect it together with some motivation letter to make it like a one file and upload it, so then the recruiter will see all things in at least something like that. So LinkedIn, of course, use it because all of us are still posting jobs on LinkedIn, I think. But yeah, go on the career website and check for the options.
Yeah, I think with Easy Apply, every company is different. So as a recruiter, when you set up a LinkedIn post, you can set up different options saying, I would like an Easy Apply button. I would like these questions answered. Hey, there's Eli. There's the man, the myth, the legend. Hopefully he'll get his connection here shortly. But with LinkedIn Easy Apply, just keep in mind, these are filters set up in the beginning. So if they ask for a cover letter, then yes, it is going to be different from maybe from the normal website. Is there a difference? One application or the other will still get to the application tracking software side. So whether I get the LinkedIn Easy Apply or whether I get your direct applicant, it's still going to come through to my side. Now, I do kind of like Easy Applies as a candidate perspective because it is that one button click, and some companies will accept that one button click. Other companies, it's kind of mundane because their application on their website is the same as it is an Easy Apply, so it's not really Easy Apply. Hey, what's going on, Eli? Can you hear us? Oh,
yeah, can y'all hear me?
Yes, sir. Welcome, Eli.
So I'm out on a cruise right now, so only you guys can get me on vacation to come do this with y'all. So how's everything going with everybody? I'm sorry that I'm late. The connection's a little spotty.
Well, we're good now. Like you want to do your introduction while we have you on? What do you want
me to say? Eli Harris, award actor. Been in the industry for over 20 years on film and television, to voiceover within the past 4 years. Helicopter. I got into the games, voice video games and animation, but of course I do a lot of commercial and promo. I work with Disney, work with UFC. I've done a lot of stuff for other brands. True Figure, which I represent, which is also a veteran owned, because I'm a veteran. I represent gaming and esports for them. And so I'm all about connecting brands together and using my voice to inspire people.
Yeah, you have amazing projects coming up here. And did the game come out? What is it? Eternals of Avion or?
Yeah, Immortals of Avion. Yeah,
Immortals of Avion. Yes, that video game. I don't know if you guys know, Immortals of Avion is a highly anticipated game. Eli Harris is one of the voice actors in that game.
Yeah. So it's receiving a whole lot of attention because Gina Torres and a bunch of other real high-powered people. Super Fuse is probably another one that I'm really, really excited about just because I'm the lead character in that game as a Berserker. And the character is animated after me. It's an ARPG that is similar to Diablo, the more comic books.
Diablo, Spider-Man, Forbidden West.
Yeah.
I love open world games. The Last Ronin, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle, is going to be an open world game. I can't wait for that game. So you got a lot of stuff cooking up. You got a lot of stuff cooking up, Eli.
Look, I'm trying to look. So I'm still trying to do stuff with Activision Blizzard. I do a lot of speaking engagements with y'all. Of course, I'm trying to get engaged in Riot. Man, Valorant. I'm such a huge Riot fan that is ridiculous.
Hey, you know what? I would love to see you Overwatch.
No, start with Valorant.
Yeah,
I would love to see you in Valorant and Overwatch. Hey, manifest that by the end of the year. You're going to be an Overwatch character and a Valorant character by 2024. Let's go.
Most definitely. Hey, the crazy thing about Overwatch is that I actually voiced the whole pitch for the game. And I didn't get in it, but I got to voice the pitch for it. I'm
That was
hopeful.
2016, right? 2016.
No, that was 2 years ago.
Oh, for Overwatch 2. Gotcha. For Overwatch 2.
Yeah, for Overwatch 2.
Hey, Cody Wood, welcome.
Can y'all see me?
Yeah.
Nice view.
Okay, good.
Is that?
Yeah.
Have you?
So
you're on the water already. You're in the water already.
I'm
Okay.
on a boat and it's going fast.
We're headed out to the Bahamas. So first time.
Mally says, please be the new Overwatch. Looks like there's a lot of fans who want you to be an Overwatch voice character. So
yeah, I'm glad that y'all have me on this too, man. It's dope to see everybody, professionals, fans of our industry get together for a cause like the Children's Hospital, the Orange County Children's Hospital. A good friend of mine, his son is battling cancer right now, and it's really unfortunate because it just hit him. And they're still trying to get the tumor shrink down. He's been going through a lot of bouts of chemo and bone marrow transplant. It's just, so when Mike Knox had initially mentioned this to me, I was like, I'm interested, but I didn't know what all was involved. I thought I had to be at Disney or something in person, which I couldn't do. Then Justin, being the person that he is, hit me up. It was like, no, we're doing this virtually. We would love to have you. And Justin has a way of explaining stuff to where it's just simple. And not that Mike didn't, it's that, Mike gave the entire pitch for everything, which, I really appreciate it, understanding about it, and Justin simplified it for me. So,
yeah, we were talking about that earlier where Mike approached me and I was like, I don't think I could do the walk, but let's do something else different. So this is my first YouTube live event. I mean, I've done streaming before, but I haven't done the YouTube live, and it's working out great. I love the 8 pictures. It looks like we're part of the Brady Bunch right now, but it's streaming really good. And this is the first time using Riverside. John, you mentioned you use Riverside for podcasts. I love it because it can simplify clips, and you can just do a studio and you just invite someone. You can have them as a guest, you can have them as a producer. But to go on your point here, Eli, honestly, one of my mentors taught me that. KISS. Keep it stupid simple. And no matter if I'm talking to CEOs, it doesn't matter if I'm talking to admirals or lieutenant or colonels, everyone can go off of just one simple element in life: simplicity. You can talk the talk. You can be the snake oil salesman. You can be the car salesman. Nobody wants to hear that mumbo jumbo. What do you want from it? What's your purpose of calling? What's your purpose of this meeting? That's not to say not to have rapport. Don't get me wrong, but that is to say, just keep it super simple. People like to know up front right away what's it all about, and not being led upon.
I find it to be a mixed bag, Justin, because sometimes, because of the way that I am, I'm a very direct individual, very professional, but I don't like wasting time, and I tell my kids this all the time, that time is the one currency that you don't get back. You can make your money back. Everything else you can make up. Time is the one thing that you lose and you can't get back. And I think when you waste people's time, it's disrespectful for both parties. Unfortunately, sometimes we run across that in our field, that even when you try to be direct, there's a lot of either ghosting or giving a runaround or whatever. So even when we try to keep things simple, it's kind of hard to,
Yeah, let's talk about ghosting. Someone mentioned that to me earlier this morning. So let's bring it up. Eli, you brought it up. I know it's a hot topic. How do you guys deal with ghosting? I know every single one of us probably got the hate mail. You ghosted me, Marie. I texted you two days ago. I texted you 2 days ago, Marie, and you haven't responded me back. What's going on? How do you guys deal with ghosting? What is your feedback on ghosting? What's the best practice? Let's talk about that. And if you guys don't mind, I'm just going to take a break
with
here.
us as the ghoster or the ghosted?
I think probably both, right?
I think both. Yeah.
I don't know.
I can pull up the comment, but
I feel like in general.
Why do people ghost? Why do people ghost? Is the
think
question.
I mean, I feel like there's a lot to unpack here, not to use like the therapist talk, but like there's a lot to unpack here. And I feel like there's a sense of like, we have to first peel back the layer of like entitlement to people's time. Like as much as you want to help people and as much as you want to be there for people, you cannot take ownership of someone else's career path or trajectory, frankly. Like that's just not how this works. Like you have to be your biggest advocate. And like Andrea, you were saying earlier, like owning your career, like you have to really own that and be your biggest supporter, your biggest cheerleader. You cannot expect somebody else to like do that work for you or expect you to do that. And I always tell folks, I'm like, listen, I'm doing this for like on LinkedIn on my own time, when I'm available, when I have bandwidth, when I have capacity. So if you're hitting me up and your response, like I've had people that have messaged me several times and have said, oh, why didn't you respond? Why didn't you respond? That I'm like, I have very clearly established like networking boundaries. If you're reaching out and you want me to review your resume, you want me to look at your cover letter, you want to just slide in my DMs with a business proposal, I'm not responding to you. And I don't owe you an explanation because like I've already outlined what my boundaries are. And if you can't do the 2 minutes of reading that post and understanding it, then I don't owe you my time. So I don't feel bad about it. I do, when it's like younger folks, I do try to make it a coaching or like a teaching moment. Like, hey, listen, like I know you're interested in the gaming industry. Love that for you. Love the passion. Let's redirect your energy to like a mentorship Discord server or like somewhere else where you can get that tactical feedback. I do have the auto reply on LinkedIn. I do have that. I have a Linktree link that's literally my auto reply now, and people will. It says like, "Hey, I actually kind of did borrow Marie's language because I loved her language of hers of like, I'll respond when I can." So I have it framed like that, and then people still are like, "Why didn't you respond? Why didn't you respond?" And I'm like, you ask me a question that is either I am too busy to respond to or I will not respond to. So I'm just not going to respond. And like also 99% of the questions people have asked me, I've already answered in like several different posts that are in the link tree. So I'm like, please read. It is your best friend. Googling and self-awareness and learning how to search and critically think on your own are very valuable skills that you can learn at any level. And especially if you want to go into a different industry, that's a very valuable skill, like knowing how to self-start, knowing how to research, knowing when to ask questions. And, you know, like there's no linear answer. And it bothers me immensely when people are like, oh, how do I like get a recruiter to respond to me? And I'm like, first of all, it's a person. This is not an algorithm. Like it's another human being. Let's add some empathy there. And second, like you can have the most beautifully crafted letter and message and they still won't respond because people are people and we have lives and bandwidths and things going on outside of our means. Like you can't just assume people are available 24/7 for your disclosure. I don't know. I would love to hear from you, Marie, because I'm sure you've had far more incidences on this, but thank you for the inspiration on the auto reply because I use that and it has saved me lots of grief. So.
Yes.
Can
Yes, for sure. No, so oh my god, I can say so much about ghosting.
Eli, sorry, were you saying something? Oh, sorry.
Eli, is it gonna say something?
No, I apologize. I wanted to address something, Christina, because what you're saying is I completely agree with. Even though I'm on a different side of the spectrum, I would get people who wanted to get into voice acting reach out to me. Although I don't typically have a protocol, one of the things about me is that I like to gauge a person's level of seriousness when they talk about it. Because I think this perception of what we do, that people get into this thinking it's one way when it's really another. Now, for me, when it comes to the ghosting, I'm on board with everything that you're saying. I think the issue that I have when it comes from my side is when those who tell us to reach out to them. And Justin can tell you, when I reach out to people, I always ask, what is an appropriate amount of time for me to wait before I follow up? Because I don't want to bombard anybody. Because, you know, I'm a hard worker, I'm a grinder, and I'm persistent, passionate with what I do. The issue that I see that I run into and a lot of people run into is when we're told to get back in touch with somebody and you do that the times they tell you to do it, and then they ghost you. And so it's kind of like, all right, I did everything that you asked me to do. I followed your protocol. I sent you what you told me to send you, and I followed up like you asked me to, but I'm still not getting a response. That is, I think, that's what I meant by as far as the ghosting. With what you're talking about is personally, I agree with it totally. And I would be frustrated if I was on your end, because for you to come to me like that, like I owe you something. It's like I don't owe you anything. You know, I can give you some of my time because I want to, but I don't owe it to you. You know, so I think that in itself is a little bit different than what you can have. But I totally agree with you. Some really messed up stuff as far as being spoken to, particularly women. I don't know if I could be in y'all's position and deal with some of the stuff that y'all deal with, because there is a lot of misogynist things that get said. There's a lot of sexist things get said. Completely takes away the work you put in to get where you are just because you may look a certain way, you know. So I give my hats off to women in general in this business, because there's a lot of messed up stuff with it. But
yeah, no, I appreciate it.
I really do. Even on the voice, it's a high level of sexism that they deal with. And nothing really gets said until it reaches a boiling point. And then even then, it's kind of either laughed off or kind of pushed to the side. You know, there's some voice actresses that I'm really close with that share things with me. Now, for me, I see it as being simple as just out to people. If there are certain, you know, CDs that are doing this, or certain agents or whatever they're doing this, out them, say something. But I think there's a fear that, okay, now I'm not going to book work. If I say that this particular individual who is well known in the industry casting for projects, now I'm going to get blacklisted, you know. So, and it's like that for people of color too, for us as well. Sorry, but that's a whole rabbit hole. But back to what I was saying initially about the
no
ghosting, I think that's
apologies needed. Yeah, no, I totally get that. Yeah, I totally get that. And I love helping people. Like, I really want to help as many people as I can, but I'm also like only human, and there's only so many messages I can do and like respond to in a day. And I think a lot of times, like what you're saying with like people saying like, oh, maybe after 3 business days following up, things like that. Like, I totally understand why there's that cadence or that suggested rhythm. I will say, like, I know, at least for me, how I've always approached it when I was on the opposite side. Like, when I reached out to Marie, I feel like I try to be thoughtful as well of like, this person has like a 9 to 5, they've got family, they've got like other, like sometimes you have no idea. Like, I remember I was working with a recruiter for a different role before I interviewed with Riot, and the recruiter was like, oh, I just had like a family emergency and I just was not able to respond to like any messages. So thank you for being patient. Like, I always try to extend grace because I never know why someone's not responding. It could be like mental health, family, just like overwhelmed. Like, there's a lot of reasons why. But I know, Marie, you were talking after that.
Yeah, I was gonna like first off kind of define like ghosting, and especially if we're gonna like take this back into like, you know, the recruiting perspective. Like, ghosting is obviously like you have already established you know, communications with the person, right? Because I think I still get a lot of, you know, DMs and comments or whatever on, you know, on LinkedIn, and they're like, oh my God, I've, you know, reached out to you and you know, and you're ghosting me. It's like, we've never talked before. Like, we've never had any type of like mutual connection. And I don't consider that ghosting. Like, that's
yeah, I love that. Thank you for defining
that.
Yeah.
So ghosting, you know, for everybody who's listening, like, let's establish that now. Like, ghosting means me and Christina have been talking for weeks, you know, weeks and weeks, and all of a sudden I never hear from her ever again. And after multiple follow-ups, I'm still not hearing from her. And I'm like, what happened? Like, we were just talking constantly for the past couple of weeks, and now you're just not showing up. That is what we would consider ghosting, because we've already established one, a relationship, and another, you know, we have established that we are going to be communicating to each other. So I think that's the first place we should start if we are going to talk about ghosting, is like establishing what that definition is. So if you have reached out to recruiters, if you have reached out to somebody and they have not responded to you, like, you can't claim that they ghosted you, because again, ghosting comes from like an established you know, communication that you already had with them, and they suddenly just disappeared, right? So that's where I would love to start. But yeah, I mean, I think, you know, it happens a lot in recruiting. I can't speak for all recruiters, right? But I know that being a recruiter for the past 10 years and knowing recruiters who have ghosted, you know, it really does come from multiple things. Like, one of them is, yeah, sometimes they're just overwhelmed. Like, there's just literally like one, like when I was at Ubisoft, and I know I'm guilty of ghosting. When I was at Ubisoft, I was one recruiter. I was the only recruiter in the San Francisco studio, and I had 60 roles by myself. 60. Average role for a recruiter is what, like 15-ish, 12 to 15.
Yeah,
so I
10,
had about like
10, 10
yeah,
15.
10, yeah, even that. I had 60 by myself.
Wow.
40 different like hiring managers, you know, teams that were global, all of that. And it was just a lot and overwhelming. And so for me, like things just slipped through the cracks. Like I just couldn't do it all. Like I was just really, really overwhelmed. So I know like for me, like that was one of the things that you know, puts me in like the ghosting bucket, because I'm just like, I just didn't have the time in the world. Like there was just no time for me to get through everything. And things like what Christina said too, like, you know, it could just be like personal reasons. Like I've had a recruiter just leave, like just had to go on leave and shut everything down. Like every candidate she had in the system just was like, where did she go? And like me and my team had to go and like find all of her active candidates to be like, so sorry, but you know, she just had to drop and leave. Like she had to go on emergency leave and that was it. Right. And so like there's also like personal reasons as well. I know one thing that like for me as a recruiter that I've experienced just throughout my career is limitations on the technology. Like I know we have like this, you know, this ATS tool that's like be the one all be all, but there are still limitations. Like I have probably worked in 10 different ATS tools in my entire career. I can tell you I have no favorite. All of them suck. Sorry. You know, like all of them have some type of limitation. And we will try our best as recruiters to use what we have, you know, at our disposal. But sometimes it just, you know what I mean? It just doesn't always work. And again, things fall off, things fall through the cracks. And then take into consideration again just the human nature of feeling overwhelmed. Hey, I've got to go, you know, on leave, I'm sick today, whatever it is. Like there's so many different reasons. But I will say, and I'll pass it on to any of the other recruiters, the last thing I'll say though is it isn't okay, right? Like I don't think anyone should be ghosted, and I don't think as recruiters we should ghost. I think we should definitely try our best to get back to candidates and let them know just where they are in the system, where they are in the process. Especially now that we're in such a crazy landscape, I think it's just, you know, extending that grace to just like, hey, you know, thanks so much for applying, but unfortunately we're not moving forward. Like at least some type of closure, right? So I think everyone is so deserving of that. And I think, you know, there are many recruiters that I know, especially now, who are really doing their best to try and do that. But of course, like I said, like all the different reasons why someone might ghost or why a recruiter might ghost, like are still in play, right? And a lot of those things is, you know, whether you think it's okay or not, like, you know, that is kind of the reality. So I'll stop there. I could totally go on and on about ghosting and like how to navigate and all that, but I'll pass it to like the other recruiters in the room or anyone else, like, you know, again, from like the other side of this perspective as like a candidate, all of that.
You know, Marie, you brought up a incredibly powerful, I think, theme of ownership when it comes to those of us that are in the talent acquisition profession. And I think that it is very, very easy to end up saying like, you know, hey, something happened. But I think it has to start with that feeling of ownership, because gosh, you know, hey, when somebody applies to something, if they didn't use LinkedIn Easy Apply, you know, that's probably 30 minutes, 45 minutes, hours sometimes of putting together that document that's going to make its way through that applicant tracking system, we hope. And I think that, you know, that creates a sense of you know, indebtedness. I think we do owe those candidates that understanding, even if it's a fast rejection email, right? Like just knowing what's going on. And it's funny, somebody in chat started a theme, and it's running now, the difference between ghosting and haunting. Which is pretty cool. I think haunting maybe is that, hey, I sent you a message, why haven't you gotten back to me? There's the haunting. Ghosting is, you had to be alive in the first place for it to be a ghost, right? So now it would be that, carrying that forward. But boy, you know, it's pretty incredible, I think, to make sure when we are in the recruiter seat that people are communicated with. And I just want to take my hat off to all the candidates who wait, because here's the thing. If you're in the candidate seat, which the majority of people are, right? One thing that I would recommend, having led these teams for a long time, is the only thing we can really control is our reaction to things. That really is the only thing that is actually in our control in our whole lives. And the way that you interface with a recruiter is ultimately your control. And there are human elements there. Like that person had a flat tire on the way in. Their kid is sick. They are sick. They lost somebody in their family today. And you demonstrating some empathy and understanding, even if maybe you're not getting exactly the output you're looking for right then, there's only positive there. There's only upside for you in being that positive part of that recruiter's day. Because if you're Marie and you're at wherever and you've got 60 roles, 80 roles on your desk, that is an impossible workload. And they're already overwhelmed. And you being a bright star that day might very well be what differentiates you as a candidate.
Oh my, I love that, John. That's such a beautiful. Also, I love the ghosting and haunting. Like I'm seeing all the Casper and like the ghost emojis, and I'm a fan of it. I'm gonna start using that term now because I feel like I definitely experience a lot of. Since I'm not a recruiter, I don't get the ghosting. I get a lot of the haunting of like, why didn't you talk to me? And I'm like, I don't know who you are. Like that Sailor Moon meme. I'm like, but you didn't do anything. I'm like, I don't even know who you are. I love that, and I love what you said, John, too, because I think it's so important for folks to remember. Like when you're in control of something, it makes a big, like it can make honestly a huge difference. I remember when I joined Riot, my recruiter was like, you were the best candidate. You were like such a great person to work with. I was like, I was being a good person. Like I'm from a Black household. Like we have manners. Like we are very conditioned at a young age to be like, yes, no, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. Like you do not disrespect people. So it's like, of course, when they're like, oh, I have to reschedule this. I'm so sorry. I'm on vacation. I'm like, oh, have a good trip. Like, I'll see you when I see you. Like, what good is it going to do if I'm like, how dare you? And like typing an angry email and being like, why didn't you possibly reschedule your, like, you have a life. Like, it's okay. Like things are going to happen. Like I understand the stress and the fear and the anxiety a lot of job seekers have right now, especially when they're looking for a job in the market we're in. But a little empathy goes a long way. And frankly, in my opinion, at least, like I think how you treat people is also a reflection of how you would be as like an employee at that company. And if you're disrespectful, whether it's like to another employee at the company or to the recruiter directly, like I think that should be something you are thoughtful and mindful of how you interact with people, because it could reflect poorly if you're being disrespectful, being insensitive to other people at that company. Like you should consider any interactions from my vantage point, like when you are interviewing with that company, as like all of your interactions and how you, I don't know if that's accurate. I can't speak on behalf of like my company or any company, but like that's just my personal philosophy. I just treat it as like I am being interviewed by all of these people, and all of my interactions and experiences will be under a bit more of a harsher light, you know. I see Marie nodding, so I appreciate the validation.
Burning
Totally. I mean,
bridges.
I was I was
Don't
just
want to
gonna
burn
say,
bridges.
yeah, exactly. Don't burn bridges. And at the end of the day, like it is like aside from all of the jobs and job searching and all of that, like go back to like human nature, like just go back to human connection. And I mean, not to like be a downer or anything, but you know, like I have received like awful responses to like rejection, you know, from folks, like to the point where someone has like given me a death threat, like literally was like, you know, I will kill you because you didn't give me this job. And like at that point, it's not even like I don't even want to hire this person to that company.
You made
like
a good
this
call.
person, like yeah, not
Yeah,
just
like
that,
that's a
from
lot.
like that is just human, like that is just something that you just never cross the line on. And so now, like, even though I see that person kind of running in the same circles that we're in, I literally am like, I don't see how that person could ever get a job anywhere. The fact that, you know, the things that they have ever said to me. And so that's why I'm like, please, 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 as candidates, like, I know it's frustrating. I know that there's like, you know, you want to like, you know, duke it out with someone, but go to the gym and hit that punching bag. Don't say, like, really, like, I mean, my mom says it to me all the time. Don't talk when you're angry. She's like, just shut up and walk away and think about it, and then you can come back, right? Because I think there's like so like that stuff is like I'm always so like shocked when people like, you know, come back
Yeah.
with just frustration.
It's
And I
entitlement.
understand.
It's entitlement
Yeah.
though, frankly, to like your time and your agency. It's like also, what do you think's gonna happen? Like, let's play this out. Like let's say I'm a candidate and Marie and I get rejected for a role. What good is it going to do? What's the outcome that's going to happen if I get angry? harsh manner. Versus if I'm like, Marie, thank you so much for the time. I really appreciate the time I got to interview for this role. It was such a great opportunity. Like, super bummed I didn't get this, but on to the next one. I hope like the outcomes we're gonna see if we choose our own adventure here are gonna be radically different, I would imagine. It's funny because that happened to me before I got my current Riot position. I had just interviewed for a different role at Riot, and I had done a couple interviews and I had just gotten rejected. And I said to my recruiter, like, hey, I'm really bummed I didn't get it. Like, I know whoever y'all are gonna pick is gonna be an awesome fit. Like, I wish the team luck. I'm so happy I got to interview with everybody again, and I'll keep my eye out moving forward. Literally, I'm not even joking. The next day I log on LinkedIn, my current role was posted. And I was like, a program manager job. And I apply and I messaged my recruiter. I was like, hey, like, I know we just talked yesterday, but I just wanted to let you know, like, I saw another role open and I'm applying for it. Would you be able to like talk to the recruiter of that role or like let them know I applied if that's okay? Like, no pressure either way. Just wanted to let you know since I'm applying again. And yeah, then I started interviewing again for my current role. So it's like, you never know what could happen and work in your favor. And if you just lead with empathy and a little bit of humility, grace, and emotional intelligence, it will go. I'm always shocked when people are like, wow, you're so like, thank you for being so organized, or I'm like, this is like basic. I thought this is like the bottom tier of like respect for each other. I didn't realize this was like extreme.
And Christina, did you know that about 80% of offers are ultimately accepted? So that means that about 1 in 5 times, if you're the second runner-up candidate and you handled that incredibly well, and you did not send Marie a death threat, which please people, do not send Marie death threats. If you're that silver medalist, you're now on top of that podium. Right?
Yeah, it was funny because like, when I did my next interviews, they were like, "Oh, you just did an on-site interview with us. Like, what? Like, let's speed it up." I was like, "Oh, we're going fast now." Like,
Express lane,
awesome.
right?
Yeah, it was like a couple weeks, and then I got my offer. I felt like I was in a fairy tale. I was so overwhelmed. I was like, I called my recruiter, and also it was funny because it wasn't just the I was interviewing for a program manager role, but when they sent the offer, it was for a level higher. So it was a senior program manager role. And I was floored. I was like, I think you sent me the wrong offer letter. Like, I don't think this is the right, there's too much money on this and there's a different title. They're like, oh no, we were so blown away with you. We wanted to give you like a higher title. And I was like, I was just so shocked. I was like, after being underpaid and like under level, I was just completely floored. I was like, not only did they have an opportunity to take me at a discount, essentially, they were like, actually, and they like, slid over. I was so shocked. I was like, and then I kept it together and I was like trying to be professional and not a mess. I was like, I didn't say yes. I like muted myself, screamed, and then I unmuted and I was like, so let's discuss what we can talk about in this offer. Like, I literally was internally fangirling. I was so overwhelmed. Yeah, I was like very shocked. I was like, this is awesome.
I don't think people realize that recruiters do hold a lot of weight. And it's important to talk about burning bridges.
That gives me hope also, because I feel like but number one, I think one of the best things about my neurodivergence is that I don't have object permanence. So once I send off my application and everything, I forget until I get a rejection like 3 months.
Oh my God, me too. I'm like, what is this job? I'm like, who applied for this?
Like,
and I'm like, wait, I did.
Why was I applying for CEO of Netflix?
Literally.
Was I doing?
Me too. I did the exact same. I was like, who applied to this job? And I got a rejection email like 5 months. I was like, who is this? And I'm like, I'm the drama. It's me.
That was the old me. What's happening? That was the old me. That wasn't me. But then also, I feel like because I get to meet so many different people, when I apply for things and I'm rejected, it means a lot to me when someone else sends me like an application said, this made me think of you, or this plays to your strengths. Even when I don't get that, those little nuggets are such encouragement to just keep going, that I'm doing the right thing, and to just keep honing and developing those skills.
Oh, absolutely. I think Emma posted that on LinkedIn, and she asked, is that normal for recruiters to consider you for other positions, even though I don't apply for it? Absolutely, yes. And so I do that. I know Marie does that. We do that all the time. So you guys may not see it from the back end, the backstage. You apply, you may be second runner up, like John just said, but we're thinking about you. And they're like, you know what? This person can be good here. We talk to other recruiters. We talk to other hiring managers. I work for an unannounced game, but I could be talking to a World of Warcraft team. I could be talking to the Call of Duty team. You don't see that. And so it's important to remember not to burn bridges. People have instant gratification. And I think, this topic is so great because if you speak out of anger, it is only one letter away from danger. And you don't want to burn that bridge, because I've seen it hundreds of times where a hiring manager will say, no, absolutely not. I will not talk to this person, because they remember that person from another company. And it's not even the same company. They remember that person, and it happens all the time. And so you have to be strategic. We're not here to say, don't be who you are, or, you know, if you're an ass, you're an ass. But we're here to say, just be strategic about it. Like, you know, there's a time and place for everything, and political comments or anything that could be intrusive, you know, there's a time and place for that. And so you got to keep that in mind. And I see when people get frustrated, you know, and it is frustrating, because we all been job seekers too. People don't realize recruiters have been job seekers. We do it too as well. I've been laid off twice in my career. And, you know, I've went from being on a TV show, you know, and also being one of the youngest, you know, real estate loan officers, and having a lot of money, to being humble with no money and having no jobs around. So we've been there too. And I think a lot of people forget, like, oh, they don't understand. They don't understand when we try to reach out to them. They, you know, they ignore us. We understand completely, because we're on the same boat here. And the point of the matter is, it's just like, just be mindful. Don't burn that bridge, because you never know. You may not, you're talking to Marie at Netflix, and you say something horrible to her, and then Marie says, oh, hey, I know about this candidate, and they apply to Blizzard. 9 times out of 10, Blizzard doesn't want them too, you know? So it's just like, you gotta be mindful.
The golden rule.
Golden rule,
Yeah.
right? What you've been taught in elementary school, right?
Yep.
It's just be very mindful. I want to go back real quick, Andrea. I don't know if you remember our podcast session.
Of course.
We were talking about being your own cheerleader.
Yeah.
And I love that, being your own cheerleader, because you are your only hype person. There's not going to be anyone out there that says, Christina, wake up. Christina, you need to go feed the dog. Tosh, you need to go ahead and apply to this job. There's no one else who's going to do that except for you. And so it's very important that people don't realize you have to be your own hype person. I know people look for us. They say, Justin, give me a tip. Give me the magic sauce to get a job. I need you to help me get a job. They're missing the most important thing. I could talk about how to get jobs. Marie can talk about how to get jobs. We can give tips and advice all the time, but you have to be your own hype person. And when we did our podcast session, we were talking about Sky, the little girl, right, who was on Tony Hawk's playground, where there's a half pipe, a little half pipe. And even at that young age, she taught me a lesson. You know, there were people like saying, you got to do this, Guy. You got to do it. Like, they were getting mad at her, really. They're like, you fell down 3 or 4 times. You got to do this. Like, you're in front of TV. Like, but the most important thing I got out of that whole video was the little girl hyping herself up and ignoring everyone else, ignoring the TV crew, and was like, you got this, Guy. You can do this, Guy. You got this. And she was her own hype person. No one else was hyping her up. They were kind of getting mad at her, but she was her own hype person. And she eventually did it. And it's just like, it's so important to be your own hype person.
Can I piggyback off of that real quick?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
So just like Christina said, that I think you applied to, if it was Riot or another gaming company, like a plethora, it felt like amount of times, right?
Yeah. It's like a redacted. It's really like redacted amount of time.
You're right. It's almost like a repressed memory too, because you're like, at this point, I have no idea, right? And also it was really interesting. I don't know if you guys have watched I, Tonya with Margot Robbie, the professional ice skater, like the documentary. But she made it to the Olympics, and constantly she was the best one out there. I mean, she was the first one to land a triple axel in history. And because of her upbringing, like, she wasn't even middle class, like literally, you know, pretty much poor. They saw her as like, you know, being like a hillbilly, and they're like, we don't want you to represent, you know, female skaters, because that's not the image that we're going for. And she's like, but my score says yes. So why aren't you giving me the appropriate score? And she fought tooth and nail. And unfortunately, her mom was pretty abusive. I wouldn't support that. But she said, my daughter skates the best when she's fired up, when she's pissed at the world and they say, you can't do it. And she told herself, I'll show them that I can. And that literally rings in my head like all the time, like from performing on stage to producing a film to walking into an audition, from walking into a literary manager studio where I'm trying to sell my TV show and it's just me. Like that's such an intimidating feeling. I mean, even now it gives me butterflies of feeling like if it wasn't for my little voice in my head saying, Andrew, you got this, you can do it. Like, just show them who you are. Don't be afraid, be yourself. And laughing is okay. If you're nervous and that nervous laughter, it's okay. They can laugh too. You know what I mean? So I think a lot of my pain, I express in laughter. Confusion or pain or frustration, I laugh because it's like, oh, it's funny, right? It's like I'm confused and that's funny, or like he didn't get my joke and that's funny. It's I think that's how I've handled stress, and apparently it's very positive, and it's very it does a lot to your internal organs. Laughter, it removes cortisol, stressor hormones, and everything like that. So they actually say it's very encouraged to laugh more often, right? And I said, I guess I naturally do that just because I'm like, think everything's funny. But I will add to that point that Christina mentioned about trying and submitting over and over and over. I will tell you, my first agent that I've ever signed with, how many times that I had to submit to them? 6 times before they even responded to me. And I said, you know what? Finally, when they called me in, I said, I think I emailed them 6 different times before they pulled me in. And I actually pulled up all the emails and it was 6 times. And they said that that's actually a sales strategy. I think that it was, they said if it's 6 times, you reach out to them with different strategies. And if they don't answer, next. It's not meant to be, right? Or just not right now. Not right now doesn't mean not forever. And I can also tell you that some of the agents and the managers or whoever I met, they told me not right now. Now I have an entertainment lawyer and she told me not right now. And now we're working together. And she said, yes, I believe in you.
I love that for you, Andrea. I feel like that's the biggest thing. I always tell people, I'm like, if I let every single no from Riot define me and mean that I wouldn't work there, like I literally had a vision board and I literally had like the Riot Games logo. I was like, it was like my manifestation. I was like, I had it in my dorm. All my friends made fun of me. And when I got my job at Riot and I changed my summoner name to like have Riot in front of it, all my friends were like, they thought I was joking. They were like, there's no way you actually are getting a job at Riot. And then I changed my summoner name and they were like, wait, what? It was so fun for me because I feel
chills right now. Oh my God.
Literally, I still have chills from it. I was so excited. I was so hyped from it. And it was funny because I was like, I manifested that. If you told the high school me that I'd be working at Riot Games, I would have lost my mind. Like I still lose my mind and it's been a year. Every time I walk past the Annie and Tibber statue and I see people that I've watched on video streams that were talking about like dev diaries and how they built a champion, like I totally nerd out all the time, but you have to not let the no define you because I would have never been able to make it here if I let every single no define me.
Exactly.
And be like it was not a permanent no, like it was a not right now, like you just said, Andrea, like 100%. It was a not right now.
Yeah. Let's talk about manifestation real quick. And I know like people scoff at it. They're like, oh, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. But I will give you a true story. I manifest well. And here's how I did it.
Aww.
I have a magnet on my refrigerator. And people have always told me, you should be in gaming. You're a gamer. You should be in gaming. You're a gamer. You should be in gaming. I'm like, no, government's my thing. I don't know. I'm a gamer, but I don't know how to get into gaming. And so I actually manifested the exact T of my overall total compensation package too, believe it or not. I threw out there. I had no idea about this number. And I wrote it on my refrigerator. I remember this. It's still there. That wrote down the sign-on bonus I want. I wrote down the company that I wanted. I actually had 2 companies. I had Microsoft and I had Blizzard. But it's manifesting again. If you guys heard the news, crossing the fingers, unofficial. We'll see what happens. But I had Blizzard and Microsoft on my refrigerator. Kid you not. You can ask my wife. And I said, I got this. I claimed it. I said, I got this job, this new career. I think people mess up in manifestations when they say one day, or I hope, or I will. The key is, and Rob Deirdrick does a great job, skateboarder. I used to skateboard. He's a famous skateboarder. He does a great job and says, every single celebrity, every single millionaire has the same story. They manifested what they wanted. I know people scoff at me and they laugh at me. That's such a joke. It's really not. It's psychology 101. If a man or woman think about it, they will become it. And so take away the fairy tale manifestation. Just have psychology 101. If you will it, it will become, right? Take away the word manifestation. Just having that psychology message. I willed it. I said, I did get this job. I didn't say I will want it, or, oh, that looks nice one day. Maybe I'll get married one day. Just say, I'm married. You're living that dream. I'm married. I found my significant other. I got my dream car, and just claim it. That's the difference.
I love that. Oh my god! I feel like
it's true. It's so
awesome.
true.
It's so powerful. I feel like too. The one thing I tell a lot of Black folks that I network with too, I'm like, you gotta channel like the energy, the confidence, and the energy, because I realized very early on in my career, especially being a Black queer woman, there were many white men, frankly, in a lot of spaces around me, and they were so confident. They were so like, even when they were completely wrong, they were so confident about it that I would believe them. I'd be like, oh, they're right, and they'd be like, oh, that's the wrong thing. That's not what they should be doing. And I'm like, but they were so confident. It's like you have to channel that the white man confident energy. Like that's how I've genuinely manifested, I think, a lot of things, is I've tried to channel that in my own way, because I think a lot of times, especially being a Black woman, you're very like taught to be kind of grateful for whatever you can get, like just not really like questioning or asking for more. Like I was terrified when I negotiated salary for the first time. Like I there was not a playbook on like what I could do. That's why I told myself, if I get a job at Riot, I have to make it my goal and my mission to make sure that other people understand how they can do it themselves, or at least the path that I took. You can do exactly what I did and you're not going to get the same result just because we're different people. But like, I just wanted to make that my mission. And so I love that you had a manifestation. I feel like you can't move that sticky note now, Justin, on your refrigerator. You probably have to keep
I thought about it so many times.
Even when you're cleaning, you're like, ooh, like I
thought about it.
You can't touch it. You literally cannot touch it. You can't touch it. You have to keep it there on its position. It can never move now ever again, even when you're cleaning it.
Like a 4x6
so
frame.
Like literally it needs a frame over it just to keep it protected at all costs.
Also early in my career, so I mentioned I was a loan officer. And I that was when I first heard about vision boards. And I had a vision board. I had a BMW. I had a new computer. I had a house. And I kid you not, it took by the end of that year, I got all three of those things on my vision board. And those are the only three things I had. So I'm a firm believer in it. I'm always a big firm believer. I just want to do one quick shout out. Hey, Tyler, thank you so much for the donation here. Really appreciate that, guys. Again, we're doing this for a cause and awareness. We're not here to, brag or anything. It's just awareness. We already raised, it looks like millions of dollars already with CHOC. So that's amazing. Just support. Thank you guys for your support. But I want to bring a story up of The Rock. There's Dwayne Johnson, right? Everyone knows Dwayne Johnson. And Cinderella stories, rag to riches. and The Rock, he has a story out there. If you guys can Google it, he had literally $1 in his pocket, $1. And he manifested and he said, you know what? I'm tired of saying I will do this. He goes, I am a millionaire and I am a superstar. And he was at the time a football star and he was broke, right? He had the inkling to become a great NFL star, but he shifted and he pivoted, which we can do in our careers, guys. We can definitely shift. I have a lot of recruiter friends who are ashamed of shifting. I said, don't be ashamed of shifting. You can be an account executive. You can be a project manager. You can be a customer service manager. Do not be ashamed because you've been doing recruiting for 10 years that you can't shift. And I see it all the time. People become successful. They transform. Look at that transformation. And that's what did. He transformed from being a NFL superstar. And he was so afraid that people are going to look at me. They're going to laugh at me. Why did you give it this career? He did it. He said, I'm manifesting. I'm not taking this anymore. I don't care, because he was worried about his health. You know, he had an injury, and of course, you know, injury in sports, that's the deathbed. You're done. You know, put a fork in you. You're never ever going to work in sports again. And so he was so afraid. He said, you know what? I'm going to shift. I don't care what people think about me, and I'm going to be a superstar. And he and he did it too. So again, manifestation. I know it sounds cheesy, but it's a will, it's a mindset, and that's something to think about.
That reminds me of the Arnold Schwarzenegger documentary. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but it's John said, "So good, yes." I saw that.
That was on mute. That was it's so good.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Right. I mean, it's very similar to The Rock's. You know, I mean, the way that they manifested, but like growing up impoverished in Austria and having, you know, a lot of what he talked about was there wasn't a lot of love in the family, and that is so impactful on who you grow up to be from a kid to an adult. Of like, did you have love growing up? And I know that Arnold, he said that, you know, his father was always pinning him and the brother together to compete all the time towards each other. Like, it's Mother's Day, pick the best flower in the yard, and that will be the gift to your mother. And Arnold said, constantly I was outbeat by my brother. He was always the best. He was always better than me. So now he's ingrained in his brain that my dad will love me if I'm better than him from a young age. And everything he did, he felt like I had to be the best. I had to be number one. And that's how he, you know, said, I need to be a professional, bodybuilder, because this is the way to getting out of the rut of my life. And I can do something with myself. And then he just kept saying, I need to be number one. And John, you maybe want to piggy back off of that because you saw it. But then he and was it Sylvester Stallone? They were always like neck and neck. And because of their competitiveness, they said that they probably made the best movies from always trying to compete with each other. Like, oh, we need a cannon. Well, that movie's going to have a cannon. Well, now I need like a submarine. No, now they're going to have a submarine and a machine gun and whatever. So it was like constantly competing. And he said Arnold was one of the most competitive people because he always felt that he needed to be number one, because then he felt accomplished with himself. And I think that's also the people-pleasing aspect too, right? That a lot of us want to feel accomplished and saying like, did I do a good job, right? And I think it's interesting as of actors, I said, I think honestly, that's one of the people-pleasing aspects of me is like, did I do a good job? And it's so weird that that's such a big hurdle of like acting, because it's like, well, if you're not good, people are not going to watch you and they're not going to pay for your work and you're not going to get work, right? So it's just weird. It's like a psychological, like, you know, mind F you, you know. But yeah, I'll just say that and I'll pass the mic. But, you know, he's very encouraging to seeing, like, he basically said, I'm going to do this and this is what I'm, you know, going to succeed and going to do. And then that's when he pivoted to acting, because he said, I need to move on with something different. And I transitioned, and that's what he did. And he kept transitioning to the next, you know, hype and the next excitement. So yeah, highly recommend.
I know Marie had her manifestation story too that she had mentioned. I don't know unless John, if you had something to say.
Oh, whatever I had to say, I would much rather hear Marie's story.
I want to hear the manifestation story too, if you're willing to share, Marie.
Both.
Oh my gosh. I am just like Justin. I am an absolute believer that like manifestation is real. Like, I can't explain what it is. I can't explain how it happens or why it happens, or like what those side quests are that leads to that, like that main goal. But I've had a couple that's happened in my life, and I'll just kind of like stick to what's happened in my career. But I don't know. But first off, I wanted to ask, like, has anybody read like the Law of Attraction or The Secret? Because that's kind of where, that was where I first like realized, you know, like what manifestation is. And like, I remember specifically the first thing that I ever learned, I think it was from The Secret, where it was like this person,
There's also a movie.
Ooh.
Oh, I didn't even know that. Yeah.
There's with Katie Holmes from Dawson's Creek.
Oh.
It's a great movie.
Okay. I have to check it out. I didn't know that, but yeah, the book is great. I highly recommend it. But yeah, there's a story in the book that was like the very first thing that set off this whole like manifestation thing for me. But there was I think a guy, he was an archer, and he was like, I don't ever think about what happens between me, the bow, and the target. He's like, when I go up and I'm about to like, shoot my bow, he's like, the only thing that I think about is that target will be hit. Like that, and kind of what we talked about here already, where it's like, I'm already that, right? Like I'm already rich. I'm already, going to be this person. I'm going to already have that thing. So it's very much like in line with what we've talked about. And then with the law of attraction, that is just really about like, yeah, like attracting what you want, right? So like if you want to be loved by everyone, then you should love everyone first, right? Because like what you put out into the universe is what you get back. So those are like two things that like I think about a lot when I'm like manifesting. So a couple of my stories, again, for my career, early on in my lifetime, I knew I wanted to work at Disney. I was all like, I'm already a Disney princess, so I'm going to be that. Like, I'm going to work at Disney in some kind of capacity because I'm already the Disney princess that I believe that I am. And it's so crazy that, I have like actually gotten to work at Disney. And just like everyone else, I had vision boards, post-it notes, clippings from magazines on my wall. And then also like, I've always been a big Star Wars fan. And so I was like, oh man, I would love to like work for Lucasfilm as well. And like that has actually happened. And like, speaking of just vision boards, like it is so crazy that like everything behind me is literally kind of like accumulation of my career. So I've got my Disney stuff, I've got my Star Wars stuff, and obviously like Netflix stuff too. And it's like all of this has just like been part of like that manifestation. When it came to my Netflix job, I never asked the world or the universe that I wanted a job at Netflix. I wish I had my notebook, but I actually have a notebook where when I was at Ubisoft, I was like, okay, I was happy at Ubisoft, but I was also like, okay, if I were to leave this job, I would want these things. And like the top 3 things that I wrote was, I wanted to be officially remote. This was like in the time of COVID. So I was like, it has to be 100% remote. I have to have a badass manager. Because my manager at Ubisoft was so amazing. Like, I love her, but I was like, I need to have like a badass manager if I'm going to like move from this job. And then I think the last thing was just like, having that like autonomy to kind of like put my ideas out there. I wanted to work in a place where it's like, okay, I know that ideas kind of get shut down every now and again, but I was like, I would love to be in a place where it's like, I could be open about the ideas and whatever creativity I have flowing. And then yeah, when I started interviewing for Netflix, all of those things were starting to show itself, right? Like my manager now, who I interviewed with, I was like, oh my God, I would love to work for this woman. Oh my God, like she is just incredible. I want to work for her. The next thing was like, yeah, it's the middle of the pandemic, so this is going to be 100% remote. Is that okay? I'm like, oh my God, yes, of course that would be great. I love that. And then obviously like I was like, yeah, well, what is this about? Like tell me more about it. Well, Netflix is doing games and it's the first time that we're ever doing it. And so we are looking for folks and recruiters to help us build this out. And it's going to be a very unique experience. So we want to take what you already know, but also we are going to give you the autonomy and the power to tell us like, how do we best build out this team? And so again, that third manifestation of like being able to like share what I wanted to share, be creative and how I'm going to be part of a team. And so when Netflix like made the offer, I literally went back to my notebook and was like, check, 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 like, holy cow. Like, I just wrote that down, not knowing I was going to go to Netflix, not saying I was going to go to Netflix. I had no company in mind. It was literally like, I want this if this is going to be my next job. And I got all of those things. So manifestation is real. Write it down, put it on your vision board. Like, I just feel so lucky to be kind of like sitting in the space that I am now, kind of surrounded with like, wow, all of those things. I mean, like the Star Wars stuff, like that was just like a fantasy. Like, I want to be a recruitment Jedi and a fairy princess and like work at Disney. And I like got all those things. So that's my story. Like, it is like, whether call it a brag, whatever, but I'm like so
No, congrats.
because I'm like, there's just something so cool about like putting it out there in the universe.
It really is. I love hearing stories like that, and I love being in a space where people are supportive of each other and get to talk about those stories. Does anyone else have a great story? Go ahead, Andrew.
A little quick, actually piggybacking off of Marie's story, since she's such a big Star Wars fan, and Tosh too. So you remember back in the day when no one wanted to actually purchase Star Wars? Like George Lucas could not get a buyer. He was like pitching it all around Los Angeles, and he went up to New York. I think he was staying at Coppola's place on the couch. Like his buddies, hey, that's all I got for you, right? And my uncle actually worked on the first two Star Wars films and then Star Trek, because he was dating one of the producer's daughters, right? It's like kind of who you know. And he was just like, yeah, it was so low budget. You know, I had to be the PA, building sets, doing gaffing, doing the lights, being in a costume, being a Wookiee, flying the saucers. And it was like doing anything and everything because they were all one family on a very low budget film. But finally someone believed in them, because it was like way too advanced at the time. No one wanted to purchase this weird, like, what is this fantasy crap, right? And it was like, you just got to find someone who believes in you at the end of the day, because sometimes your ideas are great and it's just, you're not pitching it to the right person because they might be even closed-minded, right? But, you know, yeah, George knew that he believed in the story. And sometimes you just feel it in your bones, right? Like, even if everyone, your friends and your family are saying, all the naysayers, right? No, that doesn't sound good. I don't like the topic. I'm selling a TV show, and I could tell you that some of my friends and my family are like, it's too dark. Like, I don't even want to be near it. And I'm like, well, that's what drives me, though. So.
You know, that's funny that you mentioned. So friends and family, most people don't realize, are your biggest critics. And unfortunately, they're probably the most toxic people. Yeah. And so there's this old saying, right? If you have something that you want to do, if you have a plan, keep it to yourself, right? Keep that secret. And there's a reason behind that. It's because if you tell your friends and family, what are they going to say? Now, you may have the support of mom, but you also may have the unsupportive cousin. It's like, I don't think you can do that. You don't know nothing about gaming. What do you know about Netflix? They may have the best intentions. It's just because they want to protect us. They love us. They're our friends. They're our family. But unfortunately, they're the biggest toxic critics that we can have. So there's an old saying that you look up on Pinterest. There's an old saying that you look up on quotes is, if you move in silence. And so I actually did that. I used to tell people, I could not hold water for nothing, right? I used to tell everyone, like, I have a secret. But move from government to gaming, I read that quote and I was like, I'm going to put that in action. I'm going to move in silence. My very first thought was to tell my dad, because my dad and I thing. And he, unfortunately, will give me, you know, the dad cliche of, Justin, you have to make sure you do this before you get into gaming. You have to do this. And I was like, I don't need that right now. I don't need that. And so I moved in silence. I didn't tell him until I actually started day one. And you guys may remember the story where my dad told me, you'll never make it in video gaming. You know, he bought me all the video games. He said, you'll never have a good career in video gaming. And I remember my first day, I made a post on Facebook and I called my dad and I said, Dad, do you remember when I said I'm never making it in gaming? And so moving in silence. You had something to say about one of your stories?
Yeah, I wanted to share the approach that I developed with manifestation is dare to try. I think if you're not trying, so nothing is going to happen. And so we all are people, and recruiters are people. So I have an example. I'm a huge fan of Joe Romero, like any Doom fans in the chat. So I actually bought his book. And I went to the conference, and I know that he's super, super friendly with people, and he signed it for me, like for Allah, and put his signature. He is like a many people that I met that are really like big stars, super nice, super easy to talk. He was talking about food, about things that he felt, and he was asking about like how you feeling and this kind of thing. So that's the approach that I also developed. Like you like don't make someone like way too high for you to ask the question. So usually these people actually would like to hear what you have to say. So the same when I had the interview at Riot Singapore, I'm in Europe, so believe me, the chances are very little. And knowing this market, how it works, and totally shifting to different type of culture. mm, yeah, it's possible. You just dare to try. That's the approach. And I wanted to make a new manifestation. I will be the first recruiter in space. So anyone is hearing, so I don't know if it's going to be Moon or it's going to be Mars. So I was a few years ago, I was sitting 20 meters from Buzz Aldrin. I was looking at him, and I was really fascinated how sharp he is, how smart he is, how fun he is. And I couldn't stop talking about space as he does all the time, talking about space. So yeah, that will be my manifestation. If you're gonna see me in my LinkedIn changing the title, I went on the moon or on the Mars. So yeah, my manifestation works.
I love that. I love that. I had something that I wanted to add because I didn't read The Secret, or I didn't have encouraging people around me. I grew up with a lot of trauma, and a lot of times my only escape was video games, or the things that I could do, or books, or fantasy. So I love Star Wars because the idea of that there was a force outside of me, and that I am part of that and I could wield it. So it more and more I started like rooting for a future me that I couldn't see because I didn't have anyone else around me that was pushing me. So I was just kind of rooting for that future me. But I kind of went through life rooting for that future me, but without the tools, the emotional tools to get there. And I ended up in a marriage that was really not good for me. I remember probably 2016 looking at myself in the mirror and saying, you will never be successful. You will never be loved all the way through, and you'll never be someone's favorite person. And I remember saying that to myself in the mirror because I had to, because if I didn't sit with that, then I would have just wilted in the place where I was. And it took a moment for me to like step outside of that space and say, okay, wait, no, that's not what I want. That's what I'm telling myself I have to be to survive right now, but that's not what I want. And I left the marriage and I just kind of broke myself down. I sat in my new apartment with nothing on the walls, looking, and I didn't even know what I like to watch on television. I didn't know who I was. And I got a dinosaur notebook and I started writing out what kind of person I wanted to be and what the trauma taught me. And through it all, I think that what I said, what do I want? What did the trauma make? What did I crave this whole time? And I really wanted to be seen. And so I kind of broke that down. And it took me a few years to break that down and say, okay, so I wanted to be seen. So what can I do to help other people feel seen? And I just took that time to just kind of open up my heart and figure out how can I make people be seen. And then through that, I started saying yes and to people. And I've gotten to meet so many different people just by saying yes to different things, and ending up in so many amazing situations because I'm allowing other people to be seen. And it's not easy, but I think that a good starting point, if you don't have the tools, if you didn't have someone that's sowing those words into your life, is just to sit down and say, what does future me look like? How can I root for this person? What's the story of this person? How do I get here? What does my heart look like for me to be this person? And I think, and I'm still on this journey now, and I feel like, and every day is better than the last, especially now that I do like I weight lift, and that makes me very happy because as it gets out all my energy. But it's but it's work, and it's work that I really appreciate. And I hope that if anyone else is out there listening to us right now, if you did not have the manifestation story that you hear from everyone else, I hope that you take the time to look at what future you looks like, and then be that person's biggest supporter and be that person's biggest fan until that is you.
Tosh, thank you for inviting us into this part of your story. Like, I feel humbled and like incredibly lucky to hear about this journey that you've been on, and especially to know the future you that we get to meet today. Like, wow. First of all,
Yeah,
oh my
it's an
God.
honor meeting the future you.
Thank you.
You know, there's so many ways that manifestation sort of takes place in people's lives. You know, there's really any version of envisioning your future you, I think could apply to manifestation. I think that some of us find that in our faith through something like prayer or meditation, or maybe it's a vision board or some, you know, blending therein. But it's incredible too. You know, there's other books too, in addition to Law of Attraction and The Secret. There's The Alchemist. Tony Robbins, not everybody loves the guy. He's he's kind of crazy in some cases, but he has a book called Awakening the Giant Within that for me was super formative in the area of a manifestation, because as you visualize something and you think about it, you make things happen in ways you can't even realize. Like, if you're thinking about that career in gaming and you're, you know, Marie, or you're Justin, or you're Christina, and you're like, you've got your vision board, you even know your comp. If you're Justin, you know your total comp. You're thinking about this. You're going to respond differently to the LinkedIn messages. You're going to look differently at the job boards. You're going to think differently about the opportunity to get involved in a new project. So maybe when somebody floats something your way and says, hey, I've got a volunteer opportunity with this game dev indie game, maybe one version of you says, like, I don't have time for that. Like, I'm busy. I'm working on this other stuff. But the one that's envisioning, the one that's rooting for your future you, in that spot says, whoa, that's a major opportunity that I just identified that I might not have. And so, boy, vision boarding or whatever form that takes, it's just so powerful and free. By the way, free. You don't have to pay anybody to teach you how to do this stuff.
Yeah.
Just
Another
go on Pinterest and just cut. I literally had it cut out in my. I have pictures of it in my dorm. I had like the Riot fist bump logo, and I had all my other like the fashion I liked and the people I thought were cool. Like I did it all around it. So it's like you can make it yourself if you people still order magazines. Like do it at home. It's really fun to do. Or on Pinterest.
And you don't have to do a vision board too.
Yeah,
right?
you don't have to. You can do a mental vision board too. It doesn't have to be something you do physically.
I have a dinosaur notebook.
Notebook is great
Pinterest
as far as writing it down. And so in The Secret, they talk about this one story of a. Am I echoing? Don't know why I'm echoing. No, is that better? All right. So in The Secret, they talk about this one story in regards to this one playboy. He wanted to find love, but he kept his room was filled with, you know, women in bikinis and just women as objects, right? And he was like that like, look at me, I have, you know, kind of like the Tony Stark of Playboys, right? And so he reached out to one of the secret life coaches, and she didn't say like create a vision board. She just said change your surrounding. Remove those pictures of those women, put flowers up. Remove, like, you know, the alcohol shut right in the living room, and put up books. And he's like, what? That's not gonna work. Well, you gotta change my mind. I paid you all this money so you can change my mind. She said, do that. So slowly he did, and he started noticing a shift. You know, and you may hear this all the time, like, change your perspective and you change your life. It's so true. So his perspective had always been like women were objects. When he started hanging up pictures of love, pictures of things a little bit more deeper, he started becoming that, you know, like osmosis. started transforming into a different person. So this coach didn't have to tell him, you need to do this, you need to do that, or here's how we rechange your mind. All she did was just say, change your perspective. And it's so important, you know? So even if you don't have a vision board, even if you don't, just change your perspective, because a lot of times, and it's so disheartening to hear, is people giving up. And they say, Justin, I've been, doing these applications for a year, and I see it all the time on LinkedIn. I'm sure you guys seen it all the time. So I've been applying. So what I did one day, actually, true story. One day I actually reached out to my recruiter friend, and you guys may have heard this story. It's a true story. I reached out to my recruiter friend and I said, can you tell me what jobs you're applying for? But just, I've been applying for senior recruiter jobs. That's what I've been doing my whole life. I can't go back down. I can't. I said, okay. You don't need to go back down. That's fine. I said, let's break it down. What are your strengths? I love people. Okay. What else? I love competitiveness. Okay. Do me a favor. Instead of putting senior recruiter in your search terms, for 1 week, put in those keywords that exemplify you. But it's not going to come out of senior recruiter, Justin. Just do it, Justin. I mean, just do it. Okay. So this person did it for 1 week. He followed my advice, and he landed a job that's not a recruiter. He landed a job that pays 3 times as much as a senior recruiter, 3 times as much. And that was just the base. And on top of that, he got commission. What he became was a sales engineer, success manager. And what that means is, it's the same thing like recruiting, but all you're doing is just selling to clients. All you're doing is the same job as a recruiter. And he did not know that that was the same job. He was so focused. His perspective was so linear. He was so frustrated because he didn't want to take a junior job. He didn't want to be a bartender. But if you change that perspective, I guarantee you, it'll change your life.
I love that. I feel like a big thing I tell folks too is like, think about how your friends would describe you, or people close in your life might describe you. Like, what type of friend would they say you are? Like, for me, I'm the planner friend. I'm the friend, like, if we're going out and we're getting brunch, like, I know everyone's dietary restrictions. I know what brunch spots we're going to. I know how to make the reservation. I know, like, the hostess. Like, you have to really, like, consider part of yourself and, like, how do other people see you, because those can be your strengths, And I love what Marie was saying too, and Tosh as well, about like, how do you, like, identifying what you want in that future version of yourself. And I think, just regardless of manifestation or whatever, I think it's always a good best practice to think about, like, the relationship you'll have with a company is a partnership. Yes, it's an employment agreement, but it's also a partnership. Like, you're getting something and they're getting something. So what is it that you feel would be most valuable? Is it the compensation? Is it the open PTO? And, like, just stack ranking that. Like, I literally put at the top of my list when I was starting to look for other roles and interviewed with Riot, was the biggest priority for me was my family and making sure I could spend time with them. And especially knowing that I would have to relocate 2,000 miles, I was like, well, I need to be able to see them as often as I can. And I need to be in an environment where I can do that. And so when they were like, oh, well, we have like flexible time off policy, I was like, this is perfect. Like, I don't feel any anxiety or stress or worry when I'm like, hey, every couple months I'm flying back to Michigan for like a week or two and I'm spending time with my family and I'm not connected to anything at work. And it really has made a huge difference for me. And I think being able to understand and identify what you're good at, like the strengths you're just talking about, Justin, and also what is it that you want from a company? Because it's not just the comp, right? I think people get hung up on compensation a lot sometimes. And it's important to think about what matters to you. Because I have friends that, they've got families, they've got kids. For them, like, what's more important is maybe that compensation to afford things for their family. But some people might value like the PTO, or maybe some people value the equity. Like, there's so much more than just the salary. And I think a lot of people, especially when you're, really struggling looking for a job. Like, I was looking for a job for 3 years, like, and I was working at a different job, and it was really stressful and really toxic environment. And I had to sort of navigate that while also trying to be my biggest cheerleader, which was really, really hard to do. So, like, save yourself some energy and try to, like, think about ways of how do I appear to other people? How do other people perceive me? Am I someone who's like really drawn to planning? Really, like, those things can inform, like you're saying, Justin, with your friend, what they go into. Like, I tell a lot of people, they don't know about program management, but if you're like, I love organizing things, I love optimizing things, I love making things easier for people, like, you should consider that. And I love that you told your friend Justin just to like put in those terms and like see what comes up, because it might be a job you've never heard of, but it might be right up what you enjoy doing and something you really find passionate.
Comments in the chat saying like wow, this they didn't expect all these stories. These are all amazing stories. Tosh, everyone came up with these amazing stories. I want to go back to the competitive and comparison. Comparison, I always say, is the biggest thief of joy. And I think when people in this market, they love to compare themselves, and they say, Marie got this job, I didn't. How did she get this job? They love to compare. And the Bible, everyone has quoted, comparison is the biggest. So we're all competitive people. And so how do you just stay in your lane? Right. And that's what I tell people. I'm echoing again. I don't know what's going on. But how do you stay in your lane is the question that's being asked here.
Yeah, I mean, I can go first. I don't know. I feel like staying in your lane is really hard. That's why I always, at least personally, I've learned in my life to lead with empathy and grace and understanding. I feel like you really can't go wrong when you lead with those things. I try to extend grace, whether it's like someone, like when I was interviewing, obviously, to recruiters and the recruiting coordinators and the folks I worked with, and even to now my current role as a program manager, where maybe I have like 10 or multiple different stakeholders on one given program, try to extend grace and be understanding that, hey, if someone can't get something done, especially as a program manager, my job is not to be like, why didn't you do it? It was due yesterday. My job is to be, hey, like, what's going on? Like, how can I help you unblock this? What are some strategies we can take? Is there some unforeseen blocker I didn't know about that prevented you from doing this work? What can I do moving forward to make it easy? Like, that's my job, is to be an ally and a coach. Kind of what Andrew was saying about producing. It's a lot of that. How can I unblock things? How can I make things easier, more efficient, better for the whole environment type of a situation? So I feel like staying in your lane is kind of like, at least how I interpret that, is staying in my lane is being like a graceful, empathetic, and emotionally mature person, and how I engage with conflict, whether it's at work or outside of it. Like, just leading by that example has always helped me with like staying true to my who I am and my North Star.
I can also piggyback off of what Christina said too, is taking every day as a gift sometimes can be very, very hard when you're in a grind, when you're trying to achieve a goal, when you're, especially if you're unemployed and you're like, I'm not happy with my living situation, I'm having a tough time maybe feeding my family. I mean, these are really big problems, right? Food, shelter, water, like the primary substances of life can be very haunting. Like we were talking about ghosting, when you're not where you want to be in your life at your current stage of life, right? And I could say too, working in the game industry, TV, film, and all of that, is social media definitely doesn't help. It does and it doesn't. It's like it could be very toxic in the way of realizing a lot of times people post their highlights of their life, their achievements, their successes, and not everyone's going to share all of their, oh my God, my, this bad thing happened, that bad thing happened, that whatever, because sometimes it's just like, I don't know. It depends on the person. Sometimes they will reveal that, but most of the time they don't, right? They want to be like this filtered version of themselves, right? And now we're not even getting a clear understanding of, well, this person is so successful and I want to be where they are in life. They have, 5 million followers, and it all started from TikTok. And it's like, I could have that looming over my head of, well, TikTok made them take off. Like, why didn't do that? Why didn't I have the same effect, right? And then all those feelings of the jealousy, the regret, the, feeling like, oh, I'm in a rush to be somewhere where I'm not being. But it's kind of reflecting back to like, but why aren't you saying how proud of you are of yourself and like what you've accomplished already? And the fact that you even care to be somewhere else is already a good starting point, because you're already establishing like, hey, I have a dream, or I have a goal, or I have an ambition. Where do I start, right? And it's kind of like self-reflecting of like, you're doing a good job. As long as you're trying a little bit every day, like, you need to tell yourself and be your biggest cheerleader of like, good job, I'm proud of you, you know? And that's where it all starts, is like having a plan and just doing a little bit every day, and finding the support that you need, in a positive support, not the toxic one that we were talking about earlier, but finding those people who, no matter what you do, they say, go for it. Because I know that that's going to make you happy. That's my input.
I love that. I love that. I want to add choosing where to spend your energy. And, I love quotes, but, where they say you're living rent free in someone's head. Where does that come from? Is you're putting your energy in thinking about, well, Marie got this job, I didn't. So all the energy and energy is action. And if you're spending all that energy on focusing on Marie, you're not focusing on yourself. And I think Tosh mentioned it before too. It's like she shifted from traumatizing experience where she says something in the mirror like you're not good enough. She shifted to I am good enough. You see how that like changes? And so I love what you just said, Andrea, is just, where do you spend your energy? If you Lucio from Overwatch, I have this little statue. I don't know if you can see him. Lucio right there. He marches to the own beat of his own drum. And there's people out there. He's like, why are you so positive? And he doesn't care about that. He spends his energy, and he chooses to spend his energy on being a positive person. And if you can tell yourself you are a great person, you can do this, you got this, going back to Sky, that's where you're choosing your energy. And I think that's where the comparison of joy, not living rent free in someone's head, it all circles back to, where am I going to spend my energy? Because if I spend my energy on myself, well, guess what? You're going to improve. If I spend my energy on John because he got the job and I didn't, you're going to be stuck in that negative quicksand. And in the movie, The Replacements with Keanu Reeves, he talks about quicksand. If anyone knows what quicksand is once you start getting in that negative mindset, it is very, very hard to get out. And so you don't want to be in negative quicksand. You want to stay above quicksand. And how do you do that? You don't focus on things outside of your control. You don't focus on external factors. You focus on yourself, and you will see miracles happen. I sound like Jim Robinson, right? I sound like Tony Robinson. He does say that a lot, but it's true. It's true though. It's so true. I'm only saying it because it's true, because I've seen it happen, and I'm sure you guys seen it happen.
That means what he's saying is
true,
gold,
yeah.
because now you're sharing it, and it's, a positive thing.
If you sit down and make a list of everyone who was important in your life, you'll notice that you're not on that list, because you don't necessarily look at yourself as if you are a person that needs to be taken care of, that needs to be loved, needs to be nurtured by you. And one way that I stay in my own lane is just by looking at myself like, okay, I guess I had practice looking at the future me. I look at that future me still as if it's outside of myself, and I nurture that person, and I take care of that person, and I guide that person, because I give amazing advice to my friends. Do I take advice? No. But but I know that I can give good advice to someone I care about. So I look at the list of everyone who I love, and I put myself at the top of it too, because I have to be, it has to be me for me always. And me versus me, because that takes away comparison's thief of joy, right? It's me versus me and me for me.
I love that. I feel like
I
I've seen
also
this
wanted
saying
to add
too.
that.
Oh, sorry.
No, no worries, no worries. I also wanted to add to that for people who are looking for a job, if we have any candidates watching the stream, it's not only company is choosing you, you are the one who is choosing the company, and probably if you get rejected, it's maybe this company, you will reject this company feel that it's something you want to do. You don't feel that you belong or share the same values. So that's why I think it's so important to look into values of the companies, and usually they're very public. So they say, yeah, this is important for us and this is how we solve the problems. I think what says a lot about companies is how they handled scandals, things that have happened in the company. So if you look what they did after, so, and it's something that you really think that, yeah, I would do that too, or I appreciate the effort. So I don't know how it's with everyone's life, but the things that didn't happen to me, actually, I'm thankful for them, because I didn't get to marry the guy, and I met my husband later, and it was the best thing happened 12 years ago. So I interviewed him, by the way, so it's a fun story. But I'm very happy that I didn't do that. I'm happy that I didn't get the job actually at Blizzard, because I get the job at Riot later. So it's just like, things that could be different. But looking back, I would reflect and think that some things that didn't happen led me to something better in my life. So, and I'm thankful for that.
I love that. I feel like people always say rejection is a redirection sometimes, and I always love that because I kept manifesting that as well. Like I had a lot of positive affirmations, like a lot of sticky notes I would put in my apartment when I would interview of like, you're calm and you're capable and you're confident and you're going to do great job interviewing and you're going to just impress them. This is just confirming what, they already know about you. Like all that stuff really helps. But yeah, definitely the rejections. And when you, in hindsight, looking back, it's very easy to be like, oh, there was a reason why I didn't get that one job or that one opportunity. The universe was waiting for me to find this door and start to open it a little bit.
One door closes, another opens.
A theme that kind of started a moment ago, and actually that we were talking about yesterday, Christina, is relationship with your boss. I think is something that I oftentimes, in my experience, we don't think about that until it's already defined for us. Right? We say we're interviewing, and then this is the person who might be my boss. But I'll tell you right now, 10 times out of 10, I would rather have the wrong job with the right boss than the right job with the wrong boss, because that relationship says so much about your future opportunities. And the reason I say this is there's a lot of opportunities out there that might be just like 1 degree or 20 degrees off, maybe from what exactly somebody wants. Whether you have that vision board up there or not, if you're sort of directionally close to where you want to be, especially if it's a big organization, of which there's huge gaming studios, take, Nintendo, for example. If there's that job, that PM job, project manager job that you really want, but there's maybe something that's 1 degree off, like something in coordination or even in recruiting, and you can get in there, that's a big enough organization where you can find your way over, and that's one, it's a little bit more circuitous, but it is a path to that place. And if you got the right boss, you'll not only get there, you'll get there faster and with more momentum than you could have imagined. So when you do get there, you're busting through doors instead of finding them locked. So just that's advice. If I could go back 20 years and tell, I don't want to say how old John would be 20 years ago, but I would tell that John, hey, maybe think about that a little bit.
Yeah, I love that. That's solid advice. I feel like that's the thing I wish someone had told me too when I first started my first corporate job, is like how much your boss matters and how important it is to, like what Ala was saying, like you're choosing the company just as much as they're choosing you, and like to treat that very seriously, because it's a very serious relationship you're entering into. So you're allowed to ask questions about, how has that manager worked, especially if you're like a person of color or a marginalized or underrepresented person. Like how do they support those types of people in the workplace? How often are they able to promote people on their team? What have they done in the past to promote people on their team? Like how do they advocate for you when you're not, like there are lots of questions you can really start to dig into to understand that interview setting. Like what do they actually do? Like I asked my manager lots of questions about how does he support Black women in the workplace and how often does he promote them and what are some steps he takes? And I was asking questions about racism and inherent bias and all these different things. Like in hindsight, I was like, I really put this man through like a 5. Like I was grilling. I was like, what we're not going to do is go to a toxic, potentially racist work environment. So I don't want to experience that again because I have previously in my career. So I was very I think you're great. I just have I have questions and I need to go through them in this cadence. So I just like went
because
through.
you're interviewing them as they're
Yeah, I mean,
interviewing
I
you,
literally was.
right?
It felt like an Oprah interview. I was like, "So, were you?" I was like channeling Oprah. I was like, "So," I was like, how do you feel about that? How do you feel about supporting marginalized?" I was like very like he was great about it. He's awesome. He's definitely one of the best managers I've ever had. He's an amazing person. He's a huge advocate of me, like in and outside of the workplace. And it's funny because a couple of weeks ago, someone internally tagged him and was like, "Oh, hey, thanks for this like new captioning feature we have in our internal videos." And he could have easily just been like, "Oh yeah, that was all me," like just kind of left it at that. But he took he tagged me in the reply. He's like, "Actually, you have like Christina to thank for that. She advocated for the accessibility. She found this new solution. She like did all this work behind the scenes to make it happen. So any praise you're directing towards my team should specifically go to her, not me." And I was like, "Jeremy, you could have just like not done that. You could have just taken that compliment and I would have never known anything different." But he like intentionally went out of his way to like highlight me. And when I mentioned it in our one-on-one, he was like, "I didn't even think about that." I was like, it meant so much to me, but it was just like, he's like, "Yeah, of course. Like, why would I take credit for that?" I was like, "You don't understand how hard that is to find in some work environments, especially as a Black woman."
Oh,
Like,
yes.
there's sometimes I had a lot of other managers who would take credit for my work, and I would have to have those difficult conversations of like, yeah, I'm younger, yeah, I'm a woman, yes, I'm Black, but like, it doesn't mean you can just take advantage or like dismiss me or downplay the work ethic I have because of those things. Like, that's just not okay. And so I deeply appreciate him. He's been a huge like supporter of me. So I love that, John, you're highlighting. Like I yeah, 100% like can agree. Like I would rather have a wonderful, amazing manager in a stressful or potentially difficult or different job versus like having it, because that's why people leave. People leave jobs because of the managers most of the time, honestly. It's a toxic manager and they're like, "I'm out." Like it's just not for me.
It can sour your whole experience for that industry.
Oh, and that company too. It's like,
And
why
the
would I want to
company.
recommend that
Why
company
would
to anyone else or
right,
support it?
100%.
Like, why would I do that?
right. And I've had experiences where if someone my last boss, if someone praised me, she took it as a personal offense. And I didn't understand. And it just
We'll need to talk offline, Cash, because we
right.
have similarities in our stories.
It was so much about this I did not honestly understand. And I was so triggered leaving that place because I wasn't sleeping, I wasn't eating, I was just sick all the time dealing with her. And as a neurodivergent person, I ask a lot of questions, and I understand now that some people take your asking of questions as a challenge to their authority, and it wasn't that. And the fact that she could not understand that, it just drove me crazy. So when I went and interviewed at a new place for the role I have now as communications director, the first thing I said was, "Okay, I ask a lot of questions. How do you how do
Yeah,
you handle
it's important
people who
to
ask-"
address that. It's important to have that. And I that was the first thing that I actually did, Tash, when I joined Riot. I made like a how I work document and I shared.
Yes.
I was like, I ask a lot of questions. I struggle with social cues sometimes, and
Yes, I do.
I might be very overwhelmed in situations, or you might see me and you might wave at me, and I might just like not even, because I'm just in like I'm doing something else. I'm like in my at my
Hyper-focus.
desk, like very hyper focused. I'm not mean. I just am focused. And so
Yes.
it was great because my whole team, we all made them, and it was really cute. So I was like, we all have different things. We're like, I'm like, if I have my headphones on at my desk, that means don't talk to me. Just ping me on Slack, and I'll like take my headphones off and talk to you. But headphones means focus time, which means I cannot like I will literally be really confused having to context switch. So like that helped me. And it was funny because when you said the questions thing, I had the exact same
I struggle with
experience.
social
I didn't
social
realize
cues too. And
it
that's
was so
like,
overwhelming. I was like, this explains so much. Once I
Yes.
realized I was neurodivergent, I was like, oh, this explains like everything in my life.
Yes.
Third,
It was
third
so
to
funny.
that,
Yeah.
one of as a kid, I'd always hear, "Why do you ask so many questions? Why do you ask why?" They're like, "I don't know. I just
And
wanna
it's a great thing to foster in people, like being curious.
know."
Questions is
Yeah.
honestly an awesome trait. It makes you more thoughtful. It makes you more collaborative. It makes you more inclusive too, because oftentimes I would be asking questions. I was like, well, why don't we have captions? And our team was like, oh yeah, like why don't we have that? Like that seems pretty something we should work on. And it was
Yeah.
cool
And
getting to work on
I
that.
work so much better and so much more efficiently when I understand more
Fully.
about it. And if I have the freedom and the safety to ask those questions, then I don't feel so much anxiety tied into the process of what I'm
Yeah, of
doing.
course
And then
not.
I can thrive. And I think everyone deserves the ability to
Yeah,
thrive.
everyone deserves to be psychologically safe and comfortable enough to be their authentic self, you know. And if that means like you're asking lots of questions, if it means you're stimming at your desk and you have a fidget toy, like everyone should be allowed to have that space, and no one should be treated as like less than or different. Like if I have to explain things in a different way to somebody, like that's totally cool. I'm fine with
Yes.
that. Like we should all be willing to accommodate and be thoughtful in how we communicate with each other and not assume that everything is like a one size fits all communication tool. That's why I always tell people, I'm like, this is how I work. And if it doesn't work for you, if you're like, Christina, I just like to have coffee chats and I just want to come up to your desk and just let's go to the Bilgewater and let's go grab coffee. I'm like, I love that for you, but I'm gonna really need you to send me a Slack message before. And then I will be happy to be like, yeah, I'm at a spot where I can pause and I can go grab coffee. But if you don't do it, like I'll meet you halfway, but you have to meet me halfway in what I need in terms of an accommodation too.
Yeah, I think that's smart.
I hope that there's leaders now or future listening to this right now, hearing these stories and saying, wow, I wonder if there's people I could be supporting better. I wonder if I could be setting my team up for success in ways I hadn't considered. And in hearing this example set, right, there's powerful stories there.
Ooh,
and
yeah.
maybe start with listening a little bit, right? Like leaders.
Leaders. Yeah, listen, giving credit where it's due, even when they're
Yeah.
not in the room, like being
Yes.
thoughtful and inclusive in how you approach conversations and meetings, like even little things like having meeting notes or having an agenda is just, it makes a huge difference for all types of folks that have different processing issues and they might just need that information. Like my biggest pet peeve is like when I go into a meeting and I have no idea what people want to talk to me about. It's super overwhelming. And so I try to make that little adjustment anytime I meet. I'm like, hey, this is what we're going to be talking about. These are the people I would love to hear from in this conversation. And then we'll recap at the end and assign like clear action items. Like that's just how I run my meetings. And people always tell me after, like, this is the best meeting ever. I'm like, I try to be efficient and not waste people's time. Like Eli was saying earlier, like that's a currency you can't get back. So I'm not trying to like, if we're on a 30-minute meeting and we finish this in 15, like I'll see y'all at lunch. Like have a good lunch. Like I'm not trying to take up your
I can't do
afternoon.
that. I can't
add
do
to
that.
that?
Hey, can you hop on a quick call real quick? No.
Oh,
Yeah,
no.
they're
No,
like, hi.
I
Just like, hi, dot, dot, dot. I'm like, no.
We should do another podcast for that. So Justin, please make the notes. So we're doing the podcast for leadership. So
Leadership and accessibility best
Yeah.
practices.
You know, when I was a manager, and I would rather want someone to do the job correctly than because they didn't ask questions. I would, you know what I mean? I want them to ask questions so they can do the job correctly. You know what I mean? Because it's never a dumb question to ask. There is no dumb questions to ask. And as a
there is one dumb question: is are we there yet? That's the dumb.
are we
question.
there?
I always ask that. I ask that however many times on a road trip. I am like queen of asking. I love it. I'm like, I know nothing has changed, but I still want the reassurance that nothing has changed.
Yeah. I want to answer this question I got in chat here. So they're talking about different levels: mid-level, junior level, senior level. For recruiters, years of experience needed in the CV or cover letter. Have you overlooked someone who maybe applied as a role, but then they could use a senior role and vice versa? Absolutely. I do that all the time. I know Marie did that too, where you know, don't be afraid to apply and see like, oh, you're actually meant for a senior role. Why'd you apply to the junior role? You know, we do that all the time. Absolutely. And Tyler's quite with different recruiting and applying different job levels. Have you seen the process change over time? So there is a standard for years of experience. With entry, it is 0 to 1, mid-level with 3 to 5, or entry junior. Entry is like 0 experience, it's like 1 to 3, and then mid is 3 to 5, and then senior is like 5+, right? That's like the standard throughout the whole industry. Does it change much? No, but it does change for each company. So I don't know if you guys are trying to get to a certain point, like why entry level may get looked over, but if that's what you're asking for, I think I covered this last time. It's not that we are asking for experience on entry level. It's just that when you have 2,000 applications who are entry level, you try to find the differentiators between those applications. And yes, it does require 0 to 3 years experience, maybe. But if a person has 5 years experience or 4 years experience, they're higher level than you. And so that's why a lot of times they get hired rather than the true 0 experience. That's just from a big corporation. So my advice is always look at indie companies. You're not competing against thousands and thousands of companies. That will be a true one-to-one scenario. That will be a true junior entry-level scenario where you have those years experience and you will get accepted for that. Unfortunately, what the norm is when you're dealing with big companies, corporations, FANGs, you're dealing with thousands of applicants. And yeah, I hate to say it, they do have more experience. And so that's why the misnomer is why post a junior level position if you hire someone 4 to 5 years? It's because the competition drives it. I don't know if Marie, you have something else to add to that question in chat.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, definitely entry level means something so different when it comes to different companies, right? Like I think from at least my experience, like entry level sometimes means the most entry level to get into that company, right? And it's not like you said by definition, Justin, where it's like, oh, entry level, what most people think is supposed to be 0 experience, but entry level for X company, you know, can be like, well, this is the most entry we will ever hire anybody, right? Like this is the most entry level, and that could be an associate with 2 to 3 years, right? But that's what we would consider in that company to be entry level, because like that is the lowest we will hire for someone to come in. So really like that is like what I've seen, and I know that could be really confusing because I think, yeah, like there's also like interns, right? Like interns are also what some companies might consider as entry level, and that is where actual 0 experience actually like makes sense. But for like, yeah, like maybe something like a big tech company, a company that's been around for a long time, or even a startup, right? Like their entry is like, hey, this person needs to have actual experience, you know, to enter our company at the stage where it's at right now. But that may not mean entry as in 0 years, but entry as in they need to have at least like 2 years of experience. So it's hard to navigate, you know. I think that's where I think, you know, us recruiters are always trying to fight the good fight, because we're like, yeah, like make it make sense, right? Like if it's going to be entry level, make it entry level. But at the same time, like we are also navigating the nuance of the companies that we are supporting, right? So like for me, if it's like, yeah, I have an associate position, right? Like I have an associate producer. You know, some people might look at that as like, oh, cool, like a very entry level, like I'm going to apply with 0 experience. But based on what associate level means inside of the company, it's actually going to need like 2 years, right? So again, hard to navigate, a fight, you know, a fight that us recruiters are trying to fight, you know, trying to make it make sense. But it is like the nuance of the business that does dictate it most of the time.
It also goes back to a good hiring manager, because I remember when I was a manager and I used to hire recruiters, I told my boss, I was like, I don't want the 3 to 5 year, 10 years. I want hungry people, right? I want people who I can really take a chance on. And I think that was one of your questions in the chat, Mally. There are hiring managers who do take a chance, and they do ignore the traditional levels of your experience. Like I wanted people who are bartenders. I wanted people who were working in retail, who worked as car dealerships, because to me, even though they may not have 5 to 7 years traditional recruiting, I think those people are hungry because they worked in retail. They worked, 7 days a week. They work holidays. They know what the hustle and bustle is. And that's what I wanted on my team. So I did fight for not having the traditional years of experience and was able to hire entry level. A good story of mine is my old boss. She started off as a recruiting coordinator, and now she's like the director of all VP of talent. She started from the bottom, now working way at the top. So there, to answer your question in chat, absolutely, there are opportunities. It just may not be as often in big companies, if that makes sense.
I will say too, if I can, Justin, really quick. I was gonna say as well,
Absolutely.
like I had an executive assistant internship. That was my first ever internship, and I loved being an EA. I think a lot of people look down or don't like understand the amount of like finesse you have to be a successful and good like EA. Like managing like several people's calendars, coordinating events, like a lot of that stuff is also, surprise, surprise, what makes a great program manager if you want to pivot into that. And I feel like a lot of people when we talk about like years of experience, don't undersell the fact that there's other types of work or work that you've already done, whether it's like working at a mom and pop bakery shop or, working at a retail store or, working as an executive assistant intern. Like that stuff has a potential and the ability to translate into whatever role that it is you're trying to get into potentially. I will say program management is a pretty clear one, right? Like if you've worked at a restaurant, if you've done catering events, like you have experience managing stakeholders, likely managing inventory, managing different types of things. So, you've got like a lot of different paths and ways forward. So I always try to encourage folks, like you might not have the requisite experience, but you probably have some experience.
Oh, absolutely, and I think these are all great questions here. And again, I want to be mindful of everyone's time. Time flew by fast. I didn't even realize it went from 12 to 3. So the superheroes have assembled. Thank you guys for donating. For those, again, you're not pressured to donate. We just this time. This was a valuable session for you that you can learn. This will be recorded. Our link. YouTube will record this so you can watch this later. That's one of the cool things about YouTube I like. But before we end the show here, everyone, I want to go ahead and thank you for the guests for participating in chat, everyone. I know some didn't want to participate in chat and they just sent messages. That's fine too. Everyone is different. Everyone needs representation. Before we end here, can we just go around and just say one piece of advice that you want to leave off with, whether it's encouragement, motivation? Always love to end my shows like that. And we'll popcorn it. I'll go first since I always do mine last. This is my turn to go first. I think having that jet mindset, fighter mentality, we talked about this earlier in the show, is if you can believe it, you can achieve it. The only person that's stopping you from being successful is yourself. So don't ever discount yourself and give not only to your peers, but don't forget to give words of encouragement to yourself. And Marie, I'll popcorn it over to you.
Thanks, Justin. This was super fun. I'm so glad that we did this. I can't believe like 3 hours just passed by like that. My advice or motivational words for parting with y'all is I'm going to take from Tosh because I love what she said about the force, but may the force be with you, whatever that means to you. Seriously, like whatever inner being that is, outer being that is, energy, pixie dust, whatever that means to you, whatever the force is to you, like may it be strong with you today, tomorrow, always. Like I hope you bring it into yourself, bring it unto others. I hope it manifests in whatever way you want that to be. Like I just want the best and the love for everyone, and for everyone to also find light during this time, because I know there are hard times now and ahead. So may the force be strong with all of you. Oh, and I'll popcorn it to John.
Well, thank you, Marie, as you are awash in Star Wars merch and memorabilia behind you. So appropriate. Boy, I have a feeling that there's going to be some heavy inspiration coming before and after mine. So I'm going to go super tactical, actually. And I'm going to rep Games for Love, actually, which is right down here next to my name, gamesforlove.org. Here's why. So Games for Love not only provides access to kids who are in hospitals with games, but we also provide access to gaming careers. Believe it or not, you can sign up and volunteer and get involved as a dev with zero experience. And I'm talking about, I've never even, I don't even know what coding means. We have pathways to actually get experience for you right now. And after a year, we have partners that have guaranteed interviews for you. So it's one of those ways to really get your feet on a path. You got amazing mentors, brilliant people, leaders in the industry who are really just giving of their time, not only for the kids, but also for you, because everybody listening, you're the future of the gaming industry, and it's a story we all get to write together, and we need your voice to do it. So come and join us at Games for Love, please. I will popcorn it over to Andrea.
Thanks, John. One of our captain, actually.
That's Justin. That's Justin.
Okay, one of our Avengers. There we go. But yeah, I mean, this was such a pleasure. I mean, I've learned so much from you guys too. I think that this is one of the best ways to just getting involved within the gaming industry or any industry as a whole, is hearing from people who are in it, who've worked to get there, who've, you know, the blood, the sweat, the tears, all of that is the magic of the beauty of being able to achieve your dreams, right? So Justin and I actually had this talk a couple weeks ago, but we said kind of the conclusion of our talk, and these are things that I live by, is silence your inner demons, keep fighting the good fight, and grit. And those are like some of the keys to success, right? Because if you think about it, your inner demons are your own voices. They're just not the most positive voices. So it's literally just you tearing yourself apart. So if you tell yourself, I'm so proud of you, keep going, keep fighting, then I think that that's the way to you know, achieve your dreams. I always say imagination is magical. That's like my slogan. So achieving your dreams is a magical thing, and it's a magical process. So thanks so very much, guys. And I'm going to pass it over to Christina. Pop.
Oh, thank you, Andrea. No, and thanks so much, Justin, for getting us all involved. This is such an amazing cause. Like, it's such an awesome thing that, John, that you and the team are doing. Like, this is amazing, and I'm sure it means so much to the families and the kids that get to have this awesome experience with video games. And like we all talked about at the start, you know, video games are a huge community building and a bonding moment for a lot of people. A lot of people have their formative years around bonding over a video game or hating a video game. I guess that depends what side of the spectrum you're on. But yeah, I know for parting words and any last, I guess, words of advice / motivations, I think it's just to be kind and empathetic, not just to yourself, but to those that you interact with online and around you. It really means a lot to people when you go out of your way and you actually do research on them, or you say, hey, I see that, you know, you went to this university on your LinkedIn, and that's super cool. Like, how did you navigate that? Like, asking thoughtful questions, being empathetic, being aware of, you know, the ability that you have to do your own research and be your own advocate is probably the best thing I would say. So yeah, just stay empathetic, stay thoughtful, stay emotionally intelligent, and, you know, keep your head up. You got this. I believe in you. I'll pass it over to Tosh.
I just want to say thank you for having me today. I am very honored to be here to share space with everyone and to meet other kindred spirits. And parting words of advice, this world it can be a big and scary place with a lot of things, especially if you tune into the news. But I don't know if any of you have seen the pictures from the Webb telescope. And if you look at how beautiful and vast this place is, and you get to be here too, and we're made out of the same stuff, so you matter. And I'll pass it to Allah.
Yeah, you said such a thing, so it's like, yeah, it gets me thinking. So as I mentioned, I would like to be the first recruiter in space. So let's see how it goes. That's what I learned from this session. And for those who were watching, just remember at the beginning, Christina was saying a lot about things that Marie helped her, and Marie got curious about some things in the chat, and people were actually here mentioning each other, and we're trying to lift each other. So what I've noticed in this session, that everyone was trying to not to talk about themselves, but talk about others. Oh, by the way, Marie is that. Oh, Justin, you're a really amazing connector. And this is the biggest takeaway. So you should elevate and lift and enlightening people around you, and so that's going to give you so much energy. So let's do this to each other, and so let's connect. So you see all these people on the screen, get connected, ask questions. So that's I think the word of advice I would like to give.
I love that insight that you picked that up. It is true. And I was just thinking about that. I was just like, holy smokes, that is so true. Everyone was positive and we were lifting each other up. So hopefully, guys, it's been an amazing session. Thank you guys so much for the 3 hours of this. And not only was it live, but it's also going to be recorded so everyone can watch it in the future. Thank you guys so much for your time. Hopefully connect with all of us. Feel free to reach out to us. And again, it's been an amazing journey here. So thank you guys, everyone. Have a wonderful, blessed day. And hopefully we'll see you around in the game.